righty, folks. Welcome back to HPP, the contest. See, this is what I mean. You can always start over. I like that, though, the codpast. Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Today, I am joined by Cam Riehl, my usual NBA compatriot. And also, we have a new face, a new person, a new personality, Naz Noyim. Naz is an intern with us, a journalism major, correct, at Rowan College in my state. I could drive to see Naz, and I guess we're about an hour and a half apart. You're near Camden, right?
Glassboro.
Okay.
Glassboro.
Yeah, we're really close. So, yeah. So Naz is interning with us this year or this fall. And if you want to introduce yourself, just say hello to everybody.
Well, I'm at Rowan University. I'm going to be graduating this semester with a journalism degree. And
can I stop you right there? He assumes he's graduating. I haven't passed him yet. Just a joke.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be graduating this semester with a journalism degree, and I'm looking to get into the sports media. As I just love sports, especially hoops. I could talk hoops all day, and I'd love to get into the sports media.
That's the kind of people we like, hoops junkies. So Cameron, how have you been? We had your friend Caleb on the show for his debut, talking about the Pac-12. He did an excellent job. So thank you for that reference. And how are you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to hear Caleb on the show. I know he's going to be really good. But man, yeah, I'm doing good. Just got back from my cousin's wedding in Atlanta. And, getting back into the work grind. I'm doing all right, though.
Can I ask you a question? Was the bachelor party in Atlanta, too?
I assume so. My cousin is the bride, so I wasn't exactly invited, but I assume it was in Atlanta.
Wow, what a place to have a bachelor party.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we're gonna, before we jump into our NBA Fearless Forecast, and that's what this episode's all about. Today it's all NBA. This is our final NBA episode before the season tips off next week. And so we're going to open up with an NBA notebook. We don't have too many items, but topping off the list is James Harden, unfortunately. And the reason why we bring it up, not that anything on the surface has changed, but now we're seeing Harden really start to act up as he did before with Brooklyn and Houston. He's missed practices 2 days in a row. This coincided with the reports leaked out that the Trey Mann thing was really the hang-up with the Clippers deal, and neither team was budging. Clippers won't trade Trey Mann. The Sixers, insist on having Trey Mann. And the weird thing I heard into this piece of this story was that the Sixers had already shopped Trey Mann for a first-round pick. Now, I'm a Sixers fan. Everybody knows that. I don't know who. Naz, are you, being down near Philly, are you a Sixers fan?
I'm not a Sixers fan.
What kind of fan are you?
Well, right now I'm a Lakers fan.
Okay, it was nice having you on the show. Now, this is starting to add up because Jackson's a Lakers fan too, but we'll get to that when we get to our Fearless Forecast. I was looking at this and I'm thinking, we have some Lakers fans amongst us. But now I know one of our guy who's in Japan right now, he's literally going to school in Japan. Jackson Inagi was a diehard Lakers fan. He's from California though, not he's on the West Coast. But anyway, the weird thing was the Sixers had already shopped Trey Mann for a first-round draft pick. Now, I thought the whole thing of it is that Trey Mann would be the point guard. He would give you a defensive-minded point guard to play along Maxey. They're not too far off, in the age department. Man's in between Embiid's age and Maxi's age. So kind of right there in that timeline. So to hear that they were thinking about trading him, I'm like, what? If you want to win this year, you need somebody like Trey Man. So I'm going to let you go run with this first, Cam. What do you think's going on here? Is there any hope? I mean, Harden is headed toward getting seriously fined, or the Sixers are going to play some guy who's totally out of shape and not ready to play.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think he will report, but he's going to do the bare minimum. Will he be a positive presence in any way? Probably not. He's going to continue to basically obstruct the team's success until he gets what he wants, which is a trade. It still seems like the Clippers are kind of the only destination. I haven't heard really any teams popping up in trade discussions for Harden. The one destination I've kind of heard people discussing is like loosely the idea of a Heat trade. But even then, I don't know if they want to. I don't know if many teams around the league really want to add an aging superstar who is again unhappy in his third destination.
I think Toronto.
This is the way it's going to be.
I think Toronto would be a good landing spot. They're not going to give up Siakam. They're not going to give up OG. But who could you get from them? I know they're not really happy with Grady Dick right now. Would you do Grady Dick for James Harden right now? Just straight up? Most people would say no, but huh?
I don't think I would do that if I was the Sixers. I think I want just a little bit more in return.
How about a pick in Grady Dick? Hey, I'm a poet.
I'd take that.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I'm. We were a little worried about Grady Dick. I think he's going to be fine, but the question is he going to be a star? He might just be kind of like, Bogdanovich in Atlanta. That might be a ceiling. So what do you make of this Harden mess, Naz?
Well, see, I never was sold on Harden.
Right.
I know he's a great player, but when it comes to the big moments, he never shows up. And the fact that the Clippers won't give up Trey Man, who averaged less than 10 points per game last season, tells you a lot about Harden's value right now. And he had 2 good games in the playoffs against the Celtics, but then when it really counted, him and Embiid struggled. So nobody really wants him right now. And he's playing this game. It could lead him out of the league soon.
Right.
Doing that. What he could do is show up and play hard, and maybe somebody will actually give him a valuable piece. You know what I'm saying? Somebody will.
I agree completely. I that show on ESPN where they hit the little thing where the MC agrees with the points being made. I could have hit that 50 times while you were talking.
And you know what I think? I think it's Daryl Morey that kind of spoiled him in Houston.
Yeah.
Letting him have it his way. And he did the same thing to get to Brooklyn. And then he wanted out of Brooklyn again. And now he's here. He wants it his way. And then, he wanted to get traded, but they're not giving the Sixers equal value because he doesn't have much value. And now he's pouting. Right. And the thing with the Sixers, I think they might just be cursed. Their organization went through so much, not passing up on Jalen, I think Tatum, and then with the whole thing with Ben Simmons.
They took Fultz,
and they were able to get rid of Ben Simmons and got a better player in Harden, and now they're in the same situation as.
Well, did they get a better player? Because they've been in the same boat. They still get stuck at the same spot in the playoffs every year, whether they have Simmons or Harden.
But Harden is a better player overall than
offensive player. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Sixers fans would love to have Ben Simmons back at this point.
I thought Harden and Embiid was going to be a great fit with the pick and roll and everything. I don't know. It didn't work out in the playoffs. They're just stuck in that second round phase.
They're not good team players. Neither of them are. yeah, I didn't like the idea of Harden joining the team ever, but I knew, Ben Simmons, had to go. Yeah, that's where it's at. By the way, unexpectedly, Doc Louallen is signing on, and we know Doc is going to have plenty to say about Harden. Doc, can you hear us? Doc,
Can you hear me?
my main man. I thought maybe you had passed away or something. You have a Celtics
Is
shirt
that a
with
Ben
Jason.
Simmons shirt?
Oh, it's Ben Simmons. I saw the green. I thought it was Tatum.
Who is he?
Wow. So we just
Doc's
opened up.
losing it in Cleveland, man.
Yeah. So Doc, we haven't heard from you. It's great to see you. We have a new guest. Our intern Naz Noyim is with us, and of course, Cam. We're opening up the notebook. The first thing we're talking about, of course, is Harden. I know we beat this to death, but it seems like, it's kind of like what you had been saying probably for the past couple of months. This is eventually going to come to a head. What do you make of where we are now? I mean, it seems like, what we've said is the minute it came out that the Clippers and Sixers were hung up on Trey Mann, that basically Harden started to pout and has missed the last 2 days of practice.
Yeah, Terrence Mann and but they wanted two. So the Keep on P reported that they want Terrence Mann and 2 first-round picks.
Right.
Is that the question? Will be to the fans? Do you think why would the Clippers do that trade, or why would the Sixers do that trade? Who's losing in that trade? I don't know. I don't know the full details. These kind of rumors come out and you still don't know the full details. Harden may be traded to the Portland Trailblazers for Malcolm Brogdon and something. You never know. The NBA is a weird place where nobody really knows what's going on. Every rumor you hear, it never comes true. The interesting fact about this is that the only team you ever hear with Harden is the Clippers. There's literally no other team. That's the scary part. So the Sixers are going to either have a predicament where you're going to do Ben Simmons again, you're going to wait until the trade deadline and wait for Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan to become available and then make that trade. Harden's trade value will be a little different come that's around February because his contract is expiring or someone he can just go anywhere he wants to end. He just play a half a season with us, Harden, or you could sit out. It doesn't matter. We're going to get your money off the book. So I really think that's what's going to happen. I just think the Sixers are going to be, Daryl Morey going to be stubborn about it. I don't think they're just going to trade Harden for anything. So I think they're just going to hold out until February. It honestly depends on, Joel Embiid hasn't come out yet and forcing his way and telling him to trade Harden. He's not saying anything. So by him not saying that, by your star now forcing the issue, the management is going to get their money, they're going to sell tickets regardless. They're going to be a good regular season team. The Sixers are going to be a good regular season team regardless. Of course, they're not going to get past the second round. But as long as they wait it out in the regular season, their record going to be a good record, probably going to be top 4 in the East. They'll be fine to wait until the trade deadline. And I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to wait till the trade deadline. And it's going to be one of those players, DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine.
What's funny is that the Clippers they're the kind of the perfect team for him to go to in terms of having the matching salary pieces. For example, I think it would probably work out financially if they sent the Sixers Norman Powell, Robert Covington, and BJ Boston and a first rounder. And I think if the Clippers offered the Sixers that, they should snag it.
Now, to that trade offer, that's a trade offer I wanted because I love BJ Boston, but the Sixers didn't want Norman Powell because he had too many years of his contract. So the normal Powell, they don't want him. They want Terrence Mann. Yeah.
Huh. Well, yeah, but I think Mann makes about half as much money, doesn't he? I mean, Powell makes about $20 million a year. I thought Mann was only about 10 million or so.
Yeah, they was going to get the Sixers didn't want covered. They didn't want a bunch of old guys plus
Well, Covington,
the
I
bad
think his deal's expiring. I think what's his
all they did is expire except for Norman Powell.
right. Okay. That's a shame because I like Norman Powell.
Me too.
So yeah, I guess they have their eyes set on somebody huge for next year because I mean they're not extending, Maxey or anybody. So all right. Any more thoughts on the Harden Clippers situation? It's a mess. It's a mess. And it's funny because I blame Morey started this by bringing Harden in, knowing who he was and what he had done before. But Harden is delusional. No one can tell me the only reason he signed that contract was because he knew he couldn't get any more money, long term. And I'm telling you, next year when he's a free agent, remember the number 37 million. I don't think he gets more than that. So my point of it is Harden's acting like, okay, I can understand if somehow it was communicated that we're going to pay you like 50 million, 55 million for the next 3 years or 4 years or whatever, and they didn't come through. But really, his market value to me, if he was worth any more than 37 million, he would have gone into free agency.
Exactly.
All right, so now we'll move on to Miles Bridges. And goodness gracious, just when we thought the coast was clear, not only did Miles Bridges get in trouble recently, like I believe last week, but we find out that over the winter, he also violated his probation. Now, how he kept that quiet, I'm kind of like disturbed that the Hornets would keep that quiet because they had to know, I would think. And so he's violated his probation twice. He has a restraining order for 10 years between him and his ex, and they're in a custody battle. So he hasn't done anything horrible, but he's on probation. So you don't have to do anything horrible to, get in trouble and end up in, like maybe serving jail time. I really don't know what he's facing, but right now it's not looking good for Miles Bridges to play again this season. Anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, so he had this previous interaction that resulted in a summons in January. And then again on October 6th, he allegedly was throwing billiard balls at his girlfriend's car while she was driving away with their kids.
Right.
So I mean, just again, kind of showing like my thought is like the fact that John Morant is serving a 20+ game suspension and he actually didn't commit any crimes. Has not entered the legal system, and Miles Bridges is due to only serve about a 10-game suspension plus the preseason, and he's on like.
Well, no, I mean they gave him some of his suspension was served last year.
Technically, yes, but I mean but since that was laid down, and really like a portion of that, like I believe a portion of what he's serving now is actually in like a continuation of last year because he was simply let go from the team. He wasn't with the team to serve a suspension. But still, I mean, like since then, he's obviously broken his plea deal twice. And I struggle to understand why, the NBA is punishing a player like John Morant with, I mean, relatively tame allegations compared to,
Well, you know why?
Bridges,
John Morant, you can go find the video, and well, Miles Bridges, you can't, so it's all about, they'll push things under the rug as much as possible, but they can't hide the Morant stuff because Morant was silly enough to put it on video. Go ahead.
And another thing was he had a talk with Adam Silver, and it was like Adam Silver understood that he wasn't going to do something like that again. Like,
Miles Bridges? Are we talking Miles Bridges?
No. Ja Morant.
Ja.
He sat down with him, and it was apparent that Ja Morant was not gonna flash a gun in a video, and he did it again.
Right.
So it was like a second offense, and it's like, you know, it's on a video, and he's waving a gun around. So like it's different, even though he didn't really commit any crime. He's representing the NBA in a, you know, violent way, I guess.
Yeah, well, no, I get it. You know, a lot of kids look up to him, and God knows we don't need any more gun violence in this country. So I get it. It's just if you're going to give him 25 games. By the way, Miles Bridges, there was another incident where his girlfriend attacked his ex with the kids in the car. So there's really been 3 incidences, but Bridges basically sent his girlfriend, or well, I can't say he sent, that's unfair, but his current girlfriend got into it with his ex. So, I mean, this seems never ending. And I mean, come on, people, we're adults and the kids are watching all this stuff. That's the crazy part.
I think the Hornets should just, you know, let him go, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
he's never there to play.
Yeah,
missing so much time.
I mean, look at Kevin Porter. I mean, Kevin Porter's out of the league now. Now, and the interesting thing about Kevin Porter was that his girlfriend, the person he attacked, she's all of a sudden saying it was no big deal. It didn't even last 10 seconds. It's being overblown. You know, we know that, you know, domestic violence victims, sometimes because they love the other person, you know, they often backtrack. We've seen this, you know, many times. So I don't know what to make of her latest comments, but yeah, Kevin Porter, I mean, he's out of the league. So yeah, I mean, Miles Bridges might be heading that direction too. Doc,
I thought Miles, I covered that. That was probably one of the first posts I got viral on Twitter for, was that when I told everyone about the domestic violence that he was doing with his girlfriend. First one to say it, but he been doing this for a long time, but he did miss the whole year. So by him missing the whole year, maybe the NBA is looking at it like, okay, he missed the whole year. Do we really have to suspend him again? Like, he already missed 1 full year. And then when he's coming back, they probably going to wait for the Hornets to see what they do first. Because I think when John Morant was suspended 25 games, the first time, I think it was more of the team had a decision. Say it again.
First time it was 8 games.
Yeah, 8 games. I think the team had a decision to do that, not the league. Or I think the same thing's going on with the Hornets. I think the league will give the Hornets a decision first to suspend him or do what they're going to do with him before they investigate. Because league investigation is different from team investigation. I don't know if this next case or this third case or second, other cases is under league review right now. So that's a different. That's different people looking into it between the Hornets legal team and the NBA legal team. So I think right now still on the Hornets to see what they're going to do first, and they probably doing research. They're going to they're going to take their time, let PR go through the aspects of it and see what happened. And then they're going to if the NBA feel like they got to jump in and get involved, they will. It's like the NBA is not rushing into getting it because, like you said, there's no video. See, if it was a video, it was probably cause for the NBA to jump in, but there's no video. They're going to let it be local. It's like right now it's just local news. It's not national.
The funny thing of it is, you know, I don't know the laws to play, how they're going to play out, but, you know, usually with probation, if you violate your probation, usually means, you know, some kind of stiffer sentence is coming. So it might not be in anybody's hands but the law.
Yeah, I don't believe it's actually like a probation issue, but it's more like the restraining order. Probation would be like if he had committed a separate crime. You could argue that destruction of property or what have you would be grounds, but
I don't know. I just thought probation meant you had to walk a straight line, and so he's certainly not doing that. And if you didn't, I always thought that probation, like, okay, you're on probation, but if you violate this, then you're going to serve, 90 days in jail or whatever.
Yeah, and he might still be looking at something like that based on.
Right.
behaviors. But
so we have another note about the Hornets, and that's Kai Jones, our buddy Kai Jones, was released. He had, a few days before that, he had asked to be traded, and I assume the Hornets probably looked around, didn't see any interest, and so they just cut him. And if you look at the Hornets roster right now, I mean, Cody Martin is still hurt. Book Knight just suffered a pretty an injury that's going to set him back for a while. Of course, we know Brandon Miller's hasn't really played well in summer league or the preseason, and now we have the Bridges incident. You know, this team, man. You look at that depth chart, and you're like, ugh. I don't see how this team is going to do well at all. I mean, they might have good nights scoring, you know, if Miller and Ball and Rozier can all go off, but I think they're going to be a defensive nightmare, personally.
Yeah. I was telling my father this earlier today. They're the one team in the NBA when I feel like there's no bad teams in the NBA to me anymore. I feel like a lot of teams got better. Okay, even though, let's say the Spurs, for example, I don't think they're going to be more than a 15 or 21 team, but they're not a bad team. They have room to grow. I think the Hornets to me like it's the only bad job. I wouldn't want to be a general manager for the Charlotte Hornets. That's the worst job in the NBA to me. I don't think they have any development going on there. I don't think they have really any future because they have so many problems going on all the time. And now every player who goes to Charlotte Hornets is too much. They don't act professional. They too much hip hop. Like it's too much young guys in that locker room where you got Terry Rozier, who's a rapper. Miles Bridges is a rapper. Kyle Jones just dropped a song called He's the GOAT. But he's cut now. He's cut now, but he dropped the song. You know, he was cut not because they couldn't find trade offers. He was cut because they know this is what these teams, I don't want to say that. I don't know how. This is what NBA teams do. It's not nothing to do with the NFL. NBA teams, this is what they do. They vet the player. They find out information on the player first. They get everything they need to do. They communication department. Once they get all the information they need, and you see a player get cut, that means they know something that the public don't know yet. Don't reporters know. Nobody knows yet. So they know something about him, and that's why they cut him. Come on, it's a business. Anytime you see a player get cut, they know something and they're not going to deal with it. They just want to. It's like firing an employee that you know is bad news. An employee posts on LinkedIn saying he's looking for a new job, but he doesn't say what happened. It's kind of with the Philadelphia. I don't know. You guys see with the Philadelphia Voice reporter how he got fired for saying that he's going against Hamas or something like that. He basically was talking politics, and Philly Voice fired him. Like it's kind of like stuff like that. Like they let him go. They let Kyle Jones go because they know something's wrong. I think he might be laced, like with drugs or something, honestly, and they know that. Cut him.
That's what happened with Josh Primo last year. Remember, we were all sitting around like the Spurs cut Josh Primo. Yeah, you know, and then like a day or two, I don't know how long it was. A few days later, we find out, you know, there was something, you know, nasty going on. Well, I don't know. I mean, that could be debated on what happened to Primo, but it's either a hilarious mistake or kind of gross. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's the point. When your communications department, they find out something, they let it rock out. Like they let it go for like the whole off season. He kind of was going crazy since the whole off season. They just want to get some more information to make the decision. Kyle Jones is so super athletic. He's young. Any team, why wouldn't you want him? I feel like he fits every team in the NBA. He's a prototype basketball player for today's NBA. Why wouldn't nobody want him? You wouldn't just cut Kyle Jones. You cut him for a reason. And they told the other PR staffs around the NBA what's going on. But, you know, they like a little fraternity. They're not going to let the outside know until the outside knows.
Right. All right, so now we're going to move on to another team that has its own little bit of drama, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. But before we say that, I just wanted to, for the sake of Drew Barton, I want to pass on my condolences. His favorite player of all time, Drew Timme, was waived by the Bucks this week, and he wasn't signed to a two-way. And what's interesting about this situation, if you look at the Bucks roster right now, they also cut Amari Moore. So that leaves them now with only one two-way spot taken up, and that's Ty Washington. So Timme was actually, we thought, was actually in the running perhaps for that last two-way spot. Now they have two two-way spots with Amari Moore, who was also surprised. I mean, Amari Moore was a player we liked a lot coming out of college. I mean, we knew he wasn't going to be drafted, but we knew he was destined for this two-way role. And when the Bucks signed him, no one here at Hoops Prospects was surprised. But I am surprised that they cut them both and now have two-way slots open. So, Doc, I know you said that Timme was destined to end up in Europe, so now he'll join the G League for this year, and I'll tell you why. Because he can make, well, actually no, Drew Timme could probably make more money in Europe, but yeah, actually it's interesting. Most players on these Exhibit 10s, if they get cut, they're not going to get better money in Europe because of that $75,000 bonus that they receive. So does anyone have any comments about the Bucks letting go Timme and Amari Moore?
I'll be quick with it. I don't really have so much to say about Drew Timme. The only time I talk about him is on this show. And I let all my Gonzaga fans who like the Drew Timme since freshman year, they told me he's going to be first-round pick, and it turned into he's going to be top 10, then it's turning to be top 25, second, whatever. I never believed in Drew Timme. I never liked Drew Timme. I never thought his game was good. I never thought he would translate to the NBA. I just thought he was a Gonzaga basketball player. You know, and certain guys are just good college basketball players. He was okay at college basketball. I won't say he was great like everybody else think he was, but he was cool to me. I'm not a big fan, never was, and Steve Drew Timme. Hopefully I want to have to talk again.
I got to disagree. I think he was an excellent post player. In college, but NBA doesn't really use that style of offense. Europe does. He'd be perfect over there. I think, why even put it off at this point unless, something's drastically changed, like he's dropped weight and all of a sudden he can jump higher and run faster and shoot better. That's the other thing. He's never really, been a very good shooter. He could make millions in Europe. Right now, this year, he stands to make about $115K. That's assuming he stays on the Bucks G League affiliate. I think he's got to get past January, and then he gets that $75,000 bonus. So, any other comments before we move on to the other Bucks item, which is kind of interesting? All right, we'll move on. Terry Stotts, longtime coach of the Trailblazers, longtime coach in the NBA, was hired in Milwaukee to be an assistant under rookie coach Adrian Griffith. Stotts today just up and quit. And so now your first thought was, well, you don't do that unless somebody's sick, you're sick, or somebody in your family's sick, or you got a major personality clash. And apparently the reports that are coming out now are saying it was a major personality clash, or the kind of Griffin treated him like he was kind of like, some up and coming assistant coach who was, didn't have any seniority. And apparently Stotts felt very disrespected that the way Griffin was treating him. So any comments about this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down a little bit to the hiring practice. Like, more than likely, this is a situation where you have a front office that knows they're hiring a first-year coach, or first-year head coach, I should say, because Adrian Griffin's been around for a while.
Right.
The practice is hire somebody with more experience that's a former head coach, and they can kind of assist and bring them along throughout the season. And I think this is probably a situation where Stotts was hired on thinking that he would have a little bit bigger role, maybe kind of serve as like your offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, basically the equivalent in basketball. And I'm guessing that that's not what Griffin was expecting or hoping for. More so wants to run the show from day one. I would imagine that is a pretty big cause of disagreement there. I will throw out another alternative possibility. Terry Stotts could be looking for a head coaching job. I mean, he could step in as one of those mid-season sort of candidates because he is a very experienced coach and a really good coach.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, first of all, the prevailing feeling was Stotts was there because Griffin had no coaching experience. So it was kind of like a mentor, kind of like, for those who follow college basketball, kind of what Phil Martelli does to Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard's much younger than Phil Martelli, but Martelli is very much, they seem to work together very well. But Martelli, in terms of coaching experience and age, he has like 20 more years, maybe 30 more years of coaching experience than Juwan Howard. But it works out well. But now this is according to Eric Nem and Shams from The Athletic, says that Stotts and Griffin had a tenuous relationship. That included a shoot-around incident in which Griffin yelled at Stotts to join the coach's huddle when Stotts was about to have a conversation with the team's star players. So, as an older guy, if one of you guys would yell at me, let's say you were my boss, I wouldn't take that well. I wouldn't take it well to be yelled at by any young person. So you better be at least, my level of experience and whatever. So, yeah, I understand, that he has to answer to Griffin, but at the same time, there's a certain amount of respect that he is due. And first of all, you shouldn't be yelling at any adult unless they're really being a jerk, So, we shall see. But this is not a good thing for a team that's gone all in for the NBA title. It doesn't seem like a rookie coach and a bunch of veteran players that are going all in for the NBA title. I don't know if that's a good mix. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I thought the Bucks should have hired Nick Nurse. That would have been a better fit, like to coach a veteran like Dame and Giannis together. I think that would be better. To give a rookie coach this job, I think it's going to be a little tough.
Yeah,
they could still go all the way, but it's going to be tough managing Giannis and Dame.
Doesn't it remind you a little bit of what happened with Boston last year? Boston, instead of they went with Missoula, and we saw that kind of that whole situation with Missoula. His inexperience, I thought, really showed in the playoffs. So, yeah. All right. The last item in the notebook is a trade, not so insignificant. The Thunder traded Victor Oladipo and James Robinson-Earl to the Rockets for Kevin Porter and second-round picks. I'm trying to think. Anybody know exactly which picks? I think they got two of them. Yeah. So the Thunder gets the Timberwolves 2027 second-round pick, and the Bucks 2028 second-rounder from Houston. So Houston has acquired these picks from other teams, and they're sending them in a couple of them in this trade. So basically, they're just basically sending these picks to get rid of Porter, who was immediately cut by the Thunder. Of course, Oladipo may miss the entire season because he's still injured from last year. And Robinson-Earl, surprisingly, may not make the Rockets roster. Being somebody who watches Villanova basketball a lot, I was never as high on him as most draft experts. I just didn't think he had the athleticism but I still think, he's a value, he could be a valuable reserve for somebody. On a lot of teams lack height. The team we were just talking about, Charlotte, they really don't have a lot of bigs, especially with Kai Jones now gone and Bridges. I mean, Bridges was actually slated. The way he fit into that depth chart, he was probably more likely to play a power forward than anywhere else. So, I don't think Robinson-Earl will be unemployed for long if it comes down to it. All righty. So now we move on to the main event. So let me describe to everyone what's happened here. What we did is just like last year, we took a poll of people on the staff or friends of the show, people like, for example, Tyler Hagedorn, who is also a Lakers fan. I just remembered Tyler Hagedorn is also a Lakers fan. So this is former staff, current staff, and a couple friends of the show. And we basically polled them on how each conference was going to play out in terms of order, 1 through 15 in each conference. And we picked the conference winners, the NBA champ, coach of the year, sixth man of the year, and on and on and on. So we're just going to quickly go down. And we also have the over-unders listed for each of these teams for total wins on the season. So Cam, Naz, and I, and Doc, if Doc wants to play. Doc, do you want to play this game? We're going to say whether we like over or under for each team and just general comments. Starting off with in the East, we're going to go down 1 through 15. The team that our people voted first are the Milwaukee Bucks. Personally, I didn't go with the Bucks, and one of the reasons is their rookie head coach. Any comments about the Bucks finishing? Anyone surprised that the Bucks finished first?
No, I'm not. Go ahead.
Oh, my bad, Naz. I mean, you got to imagine it was a really close vote. I don't know, Rich, I'm looking at the doc and I see your rankings. Is that like the vote difference here?
There's points. So there's points. So if someone voted Milwaukee 1, they got 15 points. So this is total points. So what separated the Celtics and the Bucks was 1 point out of the poll of, I think, at least 10 people voted. So and the Bucks only separated by 1 point. So good point, Cam, on the points.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think if you're looking at taste between if you think the Bucks are the number 1 in the East or if you think it's the Celtics, I think kind of comes down to what you value more. Is it the team with the best 1-2 punch, or is it the team with the best all-around approach? Personally, I took the Celtics to come out number 1 in the East. But if I'm looking at the over-under, 54.5 wins, I like the Bucks to beat that number. I think they're just too carried by their star power. And they'll figure out a way throughout the season to figure out the depth.
One thing
I didn't get the vote, but I would have picked the Milwaukee Bucks only because, I feel like Giannis is more of a workhorse where he play or like he's going to win games by himself. They ain't going to get going soon or whatever. I think their team is good enough to definitely be number 1 in the East, honestly. And then the Celtics every year go through maybe like a 2-month drought of just losing games or struggling. So it's like the past three years they've been doing that. So I don't know. And then Tatum has these cold streaks where he just looks bad. Like he just goes through weeks of looking bad. It's unfortunately happened in the playoffs. He had like 2 good games. One game against Philadelphia, but I was saying, I don't know. The Celtics be a shaky team, even though they're a good team. They have their shaky moments, starting with Tatum, who always go cold for weeks.
Yeah. 2 years ago we thought he was hurt, and I guess he actually was. But when he struggled in the playoffs. So Naz, what do you think of the Bucks? Are they going over or under 54.5 wins?
I definitely think they're going over 54.5 wins simply because of Dame and Giannis. They're just a perfect combination. The inside, outside, the pick and roll, it's just going to work perfectly. But the coaching weakness is only going to show up in the playoffs when it slows down. Like that's when it's really going to show. But in the regular season, even if Giannis is out for a couple of games, I think Dame could carry it. They still have Lopez, Bobby Portis. They're good role players. They just lack depth at the shooting guard position. That's the only weakness.
They have to decide. Basically their options are Connaughton and Beasley. So they don't strike fear in the hearts of opponents. I'm going to go with under. First of all, I didn't pick Milwaukee. I picked Milwaukee second in the East. But I just want to keep in mind, and for anyone who bets, always be wise to this. It's the safe bet is always under. The reason is if you add up these over-unders, okay, that are from actual casinos, okay, if you add them up, they add up to 1,251 wins, okay? The most wins you can get in any NBA season with 30 teams is 1,230, okay? So they've already propped it up so that people like to go over, and so they propped it up about a half a game per team. So and then they charge you the vig. But anyway, gambling is a losing venture, folks. All right. So, and if any casinos want to sponsor us, gambling is great. We encourage it. Sponsor our show, and I'll say anything you want. All right, so moving on, second in the East, like Cam pointed out, just ever so close vote was the Boston Celtics. That's who I chose to come in first. I'm not in love with this Celtics team. I'm not in love with any NBA team, particularly this year. But I just think I'm especially concerned about their depth, given KP's injury history, Al Horford's age. Tatum, always seems to be banged up, especially at the end of the season. Drew Holiday is certainly up there in years. So I'm definitely, and if one of those guys goes down, maybe they could survive a KP injury because they have Horford for a while. But, anybody else, I don't know. But I still think they're the best in the East. I don't like, I just think they have more firepower than Milwaukee. And not that I'm in love with Joe Mazzulla, but at least he has a year experience under his belt. So yeah. Having said all that, I'm going under. I'm going under because I don't think anybody's going to stand out this year in the NBA. What do you think, Naz?
I think you're right. I think they're going under.
And do you think they're the second best team in the East?
Definitely. I don't know if you want me to say now. I actually had them coming out of the East, so I think they'll go under because of what you said. Someone might be injured, Porzingis, or they lack depth, so they might not go as fast in the regular season. But in the postseason, like their overall team balance is gonna really help them win the East. I think if they go up against Milwaukee too, I think I have them because Drew Holiday is actually, like, I would say, a better player overall than Marcus Smart. Even though Marcus Smart won the Defensive Player of the Year, Drew Holiday is also like one of the best perimeter defenders, and he's also a better playmaker than Smart, I would say.
Better shooter too.
Yeah. So I think they just fit better. And then what they're really trying to do, they're trying to shoot as many threes as possible. They got Porzingis at the 5. He's going to shoot a lot of threes. So they're overall they're going to be pretty good, but they might not get over 54 wins.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe like 52, 51.
I think they have the best starting lineup in basketball. I just think their bench is just so iffy. So
they definitely need to add a few players. They have Peyton Preacher and I think another shooting guard, but that's about it. They don't really have anybody else.
Right. Well, they have Sam Hauser.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Sam Hauser's going to have a breakout season. I know Cam likes OJ Brissett, and he's not the only one. OJ's, very athletic, and very good on the defensive end. So Cam, I'm talking for you here. You picked the Celtics like me to win the East, and I see you're going with the over.
Yeah, I'm looking back at the standings from last season, Rich, and there were only two teams in the East that would have met this 54 game pace and actually hit the over, and it was the Bucks and the Celtics. I'm taking the over. There were 57 wins last season. I think this roster is better than last year's iteration. And I think they're going to fit into Joe Maz's, preferred system more so than last year's team. I'm a little bit higher on the depth than I think you are, Rich. And if you're projecting out, a 50 win or a 50 game season at least from a guy like Porzingis, I'm not too worried about the depth even then. I think with the healthy top six on this roster, this is maybe the most talented team in the NBA from 1 through 6. And I don't see any reason that they don't, have a pretty much guaranteed top 2 seed in the East.
Right. So third in our poll was Cleveland Cavaliers, and they also were the only other team in the over-under list to be projected for more than 50 wins at 50.5. So Cam, what do you think about the Cavs? Do you like them to be? You think they're the third best team in the East, and you like over or under there?
I struggle with this team. I was pretty high on them last year. I think, if you're projecting them out this season, you got to expect, a leap from Evan Mobley, especially offensively in terms of creating. But I think you got to enjoy a little bit of continuity with this team. I think they've filled some holes that were, pretty glaring for them come playoff time last season. Picking up some perimeter shooting. Obviously had a nice solid draft, even though they only picked up one guy.
He's talking Amoni Bates.
Yeah, Amoni Bates.
And the undrafted free agent Craig Porter continues to impress.
Yep. You got to expect another team to hit that 50 win mark, but I'm going to take the under here, just because I think the East is it's just so top loaded between the Celtics and the Bucks, and then it's kind of just the pack afterwards. It's going to get really messy past those top 2 teams.
Naz, you like the over or under, and do you think the Cavs are the third best team in the East?
I'm gonna go with under. I actually don't think they're the third best team in the East.
Okay.
It's simply because I don't really know who their 3 is. Who's playing the 3?
Well, that would be Strus or Isaac Okoro or maybe Levert. Could
or
be
Amoni Bates.
Or Amoni Bates. Yeah.
I forgot about him. I mean, they could be. If anything, I would say they'll get close to 50 wins, 50 or 49. But
right, that's what I'm thinking.
Just to be safe, it's only because there's other teams in the East that are getting better, like the Pacers and the Magic. It's gonna be tough in the East to get 50 wins. So I think the only teams that would have over 50 wins are the Celtics and the Bucks. So I'm just gonna go with under just to be safe.
Doc, what are your thoughts on the Cavs?
I'll be quick. I think they're the third best team in the East. They on paper, record-wise. I think record-wise, I don't know. I believe in the Sixers to be record-wise, only because I don't know. I'm jumping the gun, but I think my third team would be the Sixers record-wise. I think the Cavs are the better team, but I think the Cavs will go through like a drought too. I definitely don't think they get 50 wins. They might shock me. You never know, but hey, that's just what I think right now. And I want to ask a question about Amoni Bates. He made the 12-man roster. I thought he was on the
No, he's still on the 2-way, but there's talk that he could be upgraded because they have room on the roster to upgrade him to a standard contract. He'll probably start this season on the 2-way, but the way everything is going over there and the way they continue to talk about him, I wouldn't be surprised if both he and Craig Porter were upgraded to standard contracts. They still don't know exactly what's going on with Ricky Rubio, who's still, not holding out, but on his leave of absence, personal leave of absence. So I think Ricky Rubio should, make up his mind, and so the team can make some decisions there. But it's not looking good for Rubio to play this year for them.
Okay.
All right, so I really think Cleveland is the third best team, and I 50.5 is close, but I think they're capped out at 50, so that's why I'm going slightly with the under. All right, next team up is Sixers in our poll at fourth, and they too were based on the over under would have come in fourth there too, and that is 48.5 wins. So who wants to start with the Sixers?
I'll start with the Sixers. Yeah, I got them as record-wise the third best team, but like I said, I thought the Cavs is better. Sixers to me is always a good, decent regular season team. Even I feel like even last year there was times where they was probably like the number one seed, but then they struggled. They always struggled kind of like after that second half. Like the second half of the season, their record kind of go down, but they always start off good. They have times where they beat teams without Embiid in the beginning of the season. I remember one time they had a COVID issue and they lost a couple of games, but before that COVID issue, they only lost like 2 games. Like when it comes to regular season, Sixers is usually a good team. So I think the Sixers could reach that 48 games. I don't know, over, under, that's tough to bet on that. But 48, I think that's what they'd be at. 48, 49, 50. I won't be surprised to see 50 even without Harden. They got a good team. They have everything except for that second star, honestly, unless Maxey averages 25 points this year.
Mm-hmm. Naz, what do you think?
This all depends on what they do with Harden. If they don't trade him until the trade deadline, and if they just tell him to stay away from the team, just send him home until they find a trade partner. If they do that, I'm actually high on the Sixers in the regular season because of Maxey. I think Maxey could play the part of Harden. I think he could have a really big year this year. So I would say, what's the over under for Sixers?
48.5.
48.5. I would say right at 48, maybe 47, 48, 47.
Yeah. Cam?
Like you said, Rich, the under is the safest bet here, but I'm really low on the Sixers this season. I think it's going to be, if there's one safe bet in the NBA, it's bet on the most chaotic outcome. And, I'm betting on the, Harden continues to be a disaster, maybe Embiid ass out by a trade deadline. I'm looking at that sort of timeline, and it's just seeming more and more likely to me. I'm hammering the under on this one. I wouldn't be shocked if, the Sixers came into, maybe a 7-8, even a play-in seed come playoff time. I'm really worried about this roster.
I think Naz, for people who like fantasy, brings up a great point. Maxey is due to have a big year statistically because of the Harden situation. I think bringing in Kelly Oubre was really a good move because that gives them another score.
Disclaimer real quick, Rich. Cam is a Denver Nuggets fan and he hates Joel Embiid. So that's by default he hates the Sixers.
No, I like Joel Embiid more than Rich, actually.
No, probably.
I definitely do.
I'm not a big Embiid fan. I just not knowing what they're going to get for Harden, if they're going to get anything for Harden, like Naz said, maybe they even tell him to sit out so he doesn't get hurt or something like that, so they can't trade him at all. I don't, actually, though, I kind of think that the situation has come so contentious that they probably won't tell him to stay home. They're probably going to say, come, so they can fine his ass and don't have to pay him. All right, so fifth team in the East in our poll was the New York Knicks, which pretty much aligns with the over-unders. For the Knicks, it's 45.5. Cam, what do you think? Knicks fifth best team in the East?
Yeah, I have them above the Sixers on my board. They actually would have hit the over last season. They came out with 47 wins. Um, continuity with this team. They're still looking to add big free agents and take a step up, so they could improve themselves through trade. Outside of that, I mean, they started the season really slow last year. If you actually look at their back half of the season record, it's pretty strong. I like, a slight improvement from them this season, maybe in that 48 win sort of margin. So I'll take the over for the Knicks.
All right. Naz, what are you thinking?
I'm also picking the over on the Knicks. I think they're gonna continue playing really good with Brunson, and they also added Josh Hart. He's a good piece. And then the fact that Tim Thibodeau gets the most out of his players, they're gonna get a lot of wins in the regular season. So I'm picking over.
I am not a big Knicks supporter. I love Dante DiVincenzo. I love Jalen Brunson. I love all those Villanova guys, Josh Hart. But the DiVincenzo signing didn't make a lot of sense to me unless you were going to trade one of your other guards, and they haven't. And if you look at the Knicks' depth, if you ask me, if you go to our depth charts, by the way, we have updated depth charts, folks, on hoopsprospects.com. You probably won't find more updated depth charts on the web. When I look at the Knicks depth chart, I don't know. I guess maybe it's just right now, by the way, they are talking about they're basically, they're going to use Jericho Sims now as the backup four. I think this is a good team. I just don't think they've done enough. The only thing that I think would save them is if somehow RJ Barrett all of a sudden, exploded. If that could happen, if RJ Barrett could play at an all-star level, this team could definitely compete with the Cavs to be the third best team in the East. But right now, I just really haven't seen signs of him becoming an all-star. So again, I'm going to go with under. That's so far I'm taking nothing but the under, but we'll get there. There's a couple teams down below that I really think are being underrated. So now the next the conference champions from last year, the Miami Heat, are up. The Heat are also at 45.5 wins. We know that usually the Heat are a playoff team, not so much a regular season team to roll up a ton of victories. They like to rest their guys and especially Jimmy Butler. So what do you make of the Heat, Naz? Is this team better or worse than last year? We're about to say.
I think they got worse. They let go of some of their key players that contributed in the playoffs, and also in the regular season. You don't know Jimmy Butler as a regular season Jimmy Butler. We know him as playoff Jimmy. So, I'm definitely gonna pick the under. I think they might even be in the play-in again, because there's a lot of other good teams that I think are gonna compete for that 6th, 7th spot. So I think they're gonna be in 7th or 8th, the most.
Okay. Well, what about the over/under on 45.5?
Under.
All righty. Cam?
Yeah, I'm with Naz on this one. I gotta take the under, just in the fact that I mean they proved that you don't need a high seed to compete in the playoffs. So, I mean, looking to just the way that the Heat play, their roster, the way that they practice, these are guys that practice in pads for a reason. Injury is always going to be a big part of their regular season. I don't see that trend changing anytime soon. And they've got some new pieces to bring in and really fit into their system this season. So I think, right at 45 wins, I think that's their outlook for the year.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, 45, and so thus I'm taking the under. I actually believe that this team is going to surprise. I think they're better than last year. However, there is a catch to this. But here's the reason why I say the better, especially for the long run. They bring in RJ Hampton on a two-way. Jovic is another year older. They draft Jaime Jaquez. They bring in Josh Richardson to play point guard behind the aging Lowry, which I think is a nice move. They bring in Thomas Bryant, who's looks solid in the preseason. They have Hayward Highsmith, who's probably better than the minutes that he gets. However, and Cole Schweider and Justin Champagnie are fighting for that last roster spot, and both, especially Schweider, has just looked fantastic in the preseason, and so he could be that the forward spot, if Jovic or Jaime Jaquez don't come through. But here's the problem. Richardson's hurt. Hampton's hurt. Caleb Martin's hurt. And Jaime Jaquez is hurt. All these guys are hurt, and they're all questionable, for the start of the season. This is not good for a team that, it's just a hell of a way to start a season. But what I'm thinking is, I think this team's goal is going to be, we're not going to be in the play-in. We're not going to be in the play-in this year. We're not going to make it that much harder on ourselves. We're going to, I think their goal is going to be to finish, 4th, 5th in the East. And I think they'll accomplish that. So next on the list is the Atlanta Hawks. In our poll, we finished 7th in the East. They're over under for them. There's a big drop here now. A big drop from after the Heat in terms of the over-unders. The Hawks go all the way down to 42.5 wins for the season. Naz, what do you think of the Hawks?
I think they probably would be a little better than last year, but I don't know. I don't know what to really make of them. They're like one year they made it to the conference finals. Last year they battled hard with Boston. So I could see them get on a roll. They got rid of John Collins, which I think was good. And I'm actually going to pick the over. I'm going to pick the over. I see them being a little higher than the Heat, honestly.
All right, Cam?
I have a lot of trouble with this team. I am a big John Collins believer. I think their decision to move on from him is mind-boggling. They were 40. They were a 40
can
win.
Can I interject in between you and Naz, because you're on the opposite sides here?
Yeah.
Whether you like him or not, they gave him away for nothing. That's what I didn't like.
That's true.
Yeah. So go on. I'm sorry.
I like the way that he fit their team on the court. I feel like they just never used him correctly.
Right.
They're a 41 win team last year, and I would argue that their division is better this year than it was last year. This team, even with Quinn Snyder, I really like as a head coach. I think he's a really strong offensive mind. I don't think this roster fits. I like the talent, but no one has really improved in the past few seasons. I think there's so many strong young teams that are coming up that actually fit with one another. And, ultimately, if your team is run by Trae Young, you're going to have massive defensive liabilities no matter what you do. I see this team as a play-in team at best. So I'm going to take the under for the Hawks this season.
I'm going to probably surprise you, but I'm going with the over. I still haven't given up on this team. We didn't see the best of DeJounte Murray and Saddiq Bey, I think, is going to have a great season. In fact, I think Saddiq Bey and Jalen Johnson are going to be the starting forwards for this team. Jalen Johnson's had a great preseason. And I think, that's going to be what they're doing to replace Collins. I think DeAndre Hunter experiment's over. He's looked, I think it's over. They're probably going to give him away. We'll take DeAndre Hunter for James Harden. I think Onyeka Okongwu is set to have continue to improve, which he showed steady progress. Hopefully AJ Griffin can come along too. So I just think there's a lot of talent on this team. I don't expect them to, I'm thinking like 43, 44 wins. But yeah, I think they're going to finish in the top 6 or 7. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Next up is the Indiana Pacers, who I've been saying since the Summer League, we're going to make the playoffs. I definitely think they will. And they finished 8th in our poll, which would put them in the play-in games. Cam, what do you think of the Pacers?
I'm hammering the over on this team, Rich. I think you got a young star with Tyrese Halliburton. You've got a young core of talent that's ready to make a leap. Look, especially at Ben Mathurin, and a solid front court too. Really like the over for this team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I do like this team. I think they're headed in the right direction. I think they make the playoffs. Probably, first round exits. Probably, I think they'll get past play-in. I mean, they'll play their way in, and then probably first round exit. But still, I think this team will continue to make steady progress. They got a lot of nice pieces. The addition of Bruce Brown was a super addition. So, what do you think, Naz?
Definitely over. This was the one team, along with the Magic, that I was really high on in the East. I could actually see them be in the 6th seed. Like I could go as high. I'm that high on them. Like
Yeah.
I think Benedict Mathurin, he's gonna. I had him as the most improved player of the year, so I think he's gonna have a big year. Did they get rid of Buddy Hield yet? I think
No.
they're probably gonna get rid of him and get something back for him. So I think they're gonna be over 40 wins, definitely.
Alrighty. Forever an enigma, the Brooklyn Nets came in 9th in our poll. Naz, the over-under, by the way, for the Pacers, did I say it was 38.5? It was 38.5.
38.5.
Yeah, and for Brooklyn, it's 37.5. Pretty much in line with our poll where we have them finishing 9th. So what do you think, Naz, of the Brooklyn Nets?
I'm going under. I know after the trade last year, they were pretty good. Mikal Bridges had a breakout second half of the season, but I think they're going to be under unless Ben Simmons somehow become an all-star. I don't see them doing that good. I don't know how their over-under was over 37, but I'm going under.
Yeah. Well, last year I think they had like 44 wins, I believe. So, but they had
that was also before,
yeah. They had Durant and Kyrie and all that good stuff. So, what do you think, Cam?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under as well. I think, the one saving grace for this team, they've got a defensive identity at the very least. They should be pretty strong on that end. But I think offensively they're going to really struggle. They don't have a lot of creation. I think it's a pretty safe under bet.
Yeah. I will say, I love to talk about depth. This team has it. Especially if Duron Sharp can continue to play well. They do need some beef in the middle because Claxton is really more of a 4. So they're gonna go with a small starting lineup, which I think hurts them in some ways. But they still have a long way to go. I would love to see Cam Thomas, do well. He still doesn't seem to get it, as far as being a team player. So that has me worried. So I'm going under just because I just don't trust Ben Simmons, to return to his former level. So next in our poll is the Toronto Raptors. And we predicted they would finish 10th. The over-under for them is 36.5. What do you think, Ned?
I'm definitely going under. I don't see it. I don't see how they're just not that good of a team. They got rid of Van Fleet and Dennis Schroeder. I mean, he might have some stats. He might average like 18 points per game, but along with Siakam, I don't see like who else is going to be their star. I'm going with under.
What do you think, Cam?
I'm also pretty partial to the under with this team. I really believe that it's blow it up time. The difficult thing is I don't know if the Raptors front office feels the same way. I think they're still looking to add talent. I think, but I think with the talent on the team right now, I'm still comfortable going with the under.
Collectively, I like the talent on this team. It's just it doesn't fit well together. I'm thinking that they're going to make a move if they get smart and find a shooter, find some more, find somebody who could shoot. Because Grady Dick right now is struggling, so that he doesn't look like he's going to be an immediate help. So they really just don't have any shooting on this team, but they certainly have the length and athleticism. I'm going to bet that they're going to come up and make a move to get to move away from some of these big athletic guys and bring in a guard who can shoot. But James Harden's available, Toronto. All right, so moving on to 11th in the East, and that in our poll was the Chicago Bulls. Their over-under is 37.5, so the people who are making the odds actually like them to finish ahead of Toronto for the 10th spot. Our people like Toronto better than Chicago, though it was close. 1 point separating the two teams in our voting. What do you think of Chicago? I mean, I know none of us have been very high on them throughout the summer. What do you think, Cam? Over or under 37.5?
Big under. I think this is my least favorite team in basketball right now.
Mhm.
I don't love the way that the team fits. I don't love their top end talent. Big time under for the Bulls.
Naz?
I'm also going under. I mean, they haven't really gotten any better. And last year, they weren't really that good. Like, it's pretty much the same roster. They added Torrey Craig, I think, and I don't see them getting that many wins.
No, you're right. I mean, and it's the same old problems. We're still really waiting for Patrick Williams. They still haven't really found an adequate replacement for Lonzo Ball. Kobe White's looked solid in the preseason, and he seems to have won the starting job, but it still doesn't excite me that much. This team is actually guard heavy, beside Vucevic and Andre Drummond. I'm going with the under. All right, so next up in our poll is the Orlando Magic, who had just below Chicago with 36.5 projected wins. Naz, over or under?
Over.
Okay.
Over. Magic, I think all their young players are getting better. Wendell Carter, I think it was a good trade. I think they won that trade. And Ben Caro, he's gonna get better. And the guy I really like is how do you say his last name? Franz Wagner. Is that how he says it?
Yeah.
He's gonna improve. He was already really good last year, and I think he's gonna improve. Overall, I think they're gonna get better. They're definitely gonna go over. They're gonna get close to 40 wins, I think. And I see them in the play-in, probably like the 8th seed, maybe 9th, like 8th or 9th. So over.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with you. What do you think, Cam?
Yeah, actually, Naz, I already like you already, man. We got some similar takes here. I am big on the Magic this year. If you look at their record last year, once Markelle Fultz came back from injury, they were already set to be a playoff team. They started the year really slow last year. And I mean, continuing on, you got Wagner coming off of a really nice international play performance. And Ben Caro as well. We got to see him for a stint at playing some 5 ball with Team USA, and I think we're going to see more of that this season. I really love this team. I think they're a pretty solid playoff team.
The thing with the Magic is last year they were not that good, but they were competitive. Every single game that I haven't seen all their games, but even when they played the good teams, they were very competitive. So now a year later, they're gonna get a little better. All their players are gonna get better. So I they have a really good upside.
Yeah, I agree with the upside. There's a lot to like, but really, to me, it's still, to me, it's Wagner and Banchero are the building blocks for this team. I want to see it from Fultz. Jalen Suggs still is kind of like languishing again this year in the preseason, not really doing a heck of a lot, which is a big disappointment for me because I thought he was I can't miss at least good NBA player. And right now you can't say that. I'm not a big fan of Wendell Carter, but yeah, if Fultz, Suggs come along, yeah, maybe this team does sneak into the play-in. But yeah, I'm right now. I just don't know if they have enough. All right, so moving on to our poll. This surprised me. The most shocking thing of our poll came at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and we have tied for 13th the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets. So we'll start talking about Charlotte first because they had the better over-under. Their over-under is set at 31.5. What do you think, Cam?
Yeah, I don't know how they ended up higher in our rankings, but I think the Hornets and the Wizards are co-worst teams in the East. Definitely taking the under on this team. I think they'd be lucky to come out with 29 wins, which would be an improvement over last season. But with like the uncertainty of Miles Bridges being in the lineup or not throughout the full season, I can't bet on this team to return to anything like their 40 win pace from 2 seasons ago.
Right. Naz?
Yeah, one thing you said about the Hornets, Rich, was that they're terrible defensively. And that's the main reason why I want to go under. I think every team that plays against them, they're likely to have, like, the star player is likely to have their season high against them. I don't see them being any good. They're gonna be if LaMelo plays, they're gonna be flashy and they're gonna be fun to watch maybe, but they're not gonna be any good. They're not gonna win a lot of games.
Right. Yeah, I agree with Cam. Charlotte, Washington. It's really a toss up. Who's the worst team in the league? Not just the East. And to me, it's clear. So I'm not sure how they finished tied for 13th in our poll. But I am definitely taking the under 31.5 on the Hornets. All right, now we have the other team that I thought was probably just a tad worse than Charlotte, and that's the Washington Wizards. And their over-under is 24.5. What do you think, Naz?
I don't really get this. How are they that many games behind the Hornets? Because I actually think they could be a little better than them. Because the thing with them is they have 2 players that could just go off anytime. Like Kuzma could go for 31 game. Jordan Poole could go for 41 game. I mean, they could win a couple games that way. They're still a bad team, but the over under is kind of tough. It's something that I wouldn't bet on, but just to stay safe, I would do the under.
Cam?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the under on this team as well. I don't think, granted they have guys that can go off for 40 and that's great. That's fun. They're gonna go for 40 and 68 plus losses. I don't like the depth on this team. I don't like their top end talent. I don't think they have any defensive hopes at all. And I don't think they have any young players that are really, ready to take a leap and produce any kind of winning basketball. So
yeah,
I'm taking
not consistently. I will say Koulibaly has looked pretty good in the preseason. He looked better. So that's good. But yeah, I think this team's going to be a dumpster fire. They got a long, long way to go. So then in our poll, 15th is the Detroit Pistons, and this shocked the hell out of me. I don't know why people like Charlotte and Washington better than Detroit. I do not understand it. I certainly didn't vote that way. Cam, what do you think? Over under 27.5.
I'm gonna take the over. I think they were a garbage tier franchise last season, if not solely because Cade Cunningham did not play most of the season.
Yes, I think he only played in 7 games.
Yep. I mean, I don't know if people are just forgetting that Cade Cunningham was the number 1 pick and that he was pretty much the unanimous number 1 pick when he came out of the draft. Maybe forgotten that his NBA select team was outplaying the FIBA World Cup team in scrimmages. I don't know. I think this team is prepared to be better than 27 wins. I think, a 30-win pace isn't out of the question for them.
What do you think, Naz?
It's really tough for me on this one because I have to see how good Cunningham is coming back from that injury. If with him, I think they could go over, but I'm kind of uncertain. I'm just gonna stay safe and do the under.
Oh, all right. I think this is a slam dunk over, and I love the way this team is trending. I'm sold on it, and as much as you guys like Orlando to maybe sneak in, to the play-in, I think Detroit is going to win, at least be in the mid-30s in terms of wins, may get close to 40, and may sneak in there as the last play-in team. I mean, you got Cade Cunningham, you got Jaden Ivey, and you have 2 proven shooters in Bogdanovich and Joe Harris. You have Osir Thompson, who everyone keeps on raving about. You have Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren, 2 young bigs that are really coming along nicely. You throw in, a mature point guard like Monte Morris, and you still have, their third string is like dripping with talent with guys like Killian Hayes and James Wiseman. I just think this team, they're not going to make the playoffs probably won't make the playoffs this year, but I think next year they do. So, yeah. All right. So now we're going to move on to the Western Conference, and no surprise there. We agreed with the odds makers, and we voted in our poll Denver Nuggets to win the West, and their over-unders 52.5. What do you make of the Nuggets, Naz?
I'm gonna pick the under on the Nuggets. I think it's tough to say. I don't want to. They look really good, but they lost a key player in Bruce Brown. So in the regular season last year, I don't think they got over 52 wins, did they? I don't think they did.
Cam is shaking his head. Yes,
they did 53.
53.
Yep, and they pretty much tanked. They basically went 500 the last 20 games of the season.
I think the West got a lot better this year, so it's tough to go over. But I'll do the under. I'll do under on them because I actually have the Lakers coming out of the West this year.
All righty. Cameron, what do you think about your hometown team?
Yeah, no, I think the 52.5 is almost disrespectful. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, Naz is totally right about Bruce Brown, a very key player. And they've also lost some other depth pieces, but Rich, we've been covering some of the young guys that they have coming in. And it looks like a really promising young crop of players. You got a couple of second-year guys that are ready to take a leap with a guy like Christian Brown, maybe even a little bit of Peyton Watson here and there. And I don't think this team's going to slow down at all. Also, you can't underrate the fact that this team's healthy coming into the season. I mean, they managed a 53-win season with Jamal Murray, still recovering from his ACL tear throughout the season. I think they're going to be the pretty clear 1 seed going into playoff time.
Right.
I want to add something about the Nuggets. I think last year they were kind of flying under the radar, and this year pretty much everybody's picking them in the West. Nobody else is really, even though Phoenix has 3 All-Stars now, everybody's still picking the Nuggets, so they're not really under the radar anymore. They're gonna be hunted a lot more. Teams are gonna take them a lot more serious. And another thing, I mean, Michael Malone's been talking a lot of trash about the Lakers. So I think the Lakers are just like waiting for them. That's why I kind of have the Lakers coming out if they face them, and they're gonna face them in the Western Conference Finals, and I have the Lakers coming out of there because Lakers got a lot better. They got chemistry. They got some pieces at the center position. I think they got a lot better now.
I like the over. Not a tremendous amount. And I'm not sure if they're better or worse than last year. I will say this. You got second-year players, Brown and Watson. You got Zeke Naji, who's really talented, really has never had a chance to play. And then you have the rookies who have looked really good, and Julian Strawther and Hunter Tyson. So they have a lot of pieces on the bench. Now, they're unproven, but I think the potential's there. And out of that group of what I just named 5 players, I think, at least 2 of them are going to step up to be, valuable reserves. And, so I think this team repeats and wins the Western Conference, and I like over 52.5. All right, so number 2 in our poll in the West was the Phoenix Suns, and they also had the second highest over-under at 51.5. So, Cam, over under 51.5 for Phoenix.
I'm gonna take the under.
Man, you and I have been picking a lot alike.
Rich, I'm just looking. I like the roster. Don't get me wrong. I think they actually did a really good job of finding depth around the edges. I'm a little bit higher on Nurkic than others might be. But the top of their roster is injury prone, a little bit older. And I think, this team isn't really built to succeed if one of Kevin Durant or Devin Booker are injured. And I think that's guaranteed to be at least a 15 game stretch of the season. I like the under. They were 45 wins last year. And I think, a 50 win pace is respectable. And in the West, I think that's going to be a really tough record to keep.
Yeah. I agree. What do you think, Naz?
I'm actually going to go over. I know, like, injuries aside, I think they're going to win a lot of games. They're going to start the season off healthy, and they're going to go on a run to start the season. And I think they're going to be the first seed up until, like, November. I mean, up until December. It's because they just got star power. When they face off against some of the lower-level teams, it's easy wins. Even if Durant is hurt for a couple of games, I think they could still win. Booker could win some games by himself, probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. But what I'm thinking, and I like Cam's analysis of 50 wins. That's the number I had set in my head. And I just don't trust any of the big threes or Nurkic for that matter. I don't trust their health. And you look at the bench, and about the only guy you're like, I mean, if I had to play, some of these guys, the only one I really feel comfortable playing a lot of minutes is Grayson Allen. I'm not saying that somebody can't emerge like, Watanabe or Nasir Little or something like that, but Grayson Allen's the only one I feel comfortable with right now. So, if anybody misses some time, which I think is almost bound to happen, they're just not gonna run away with it, and 50 wins seems appropriate to me. All right. So next in the West, our poll has the Lakers. And actually, their over-under is slightly lower than the Golden State Warriors, who we have fourth in our poll. But the Lakers over-under is 47.5. What do you say, Naz? I think I already know what you're going to say.
That's an easy over. They're probably going to go over 50 games. I had them in my poll. I had them first in the West. So, like, the main reason is they have a lot of depth now.
Yeah, they do.
Depth was their issue last year. Now, Austin Reeves could emerge as that third guy. He's going to be handling the ball a lot. And then you have D'Lo. He's not good in the playoffs, but regular season, you could count on him. You know, he gets in a hot streak. And defensively, I also had AD winning the Defensive Player of the Year if he stays healthy. That's the biggest question. Like, if AD stays healthy and LeBron, like, kind of coasts through the regular season, I think they could get up to 50 wins.
Okay. What do you think, Cameron?
So, I mean, I look at the Lakers, I think they are better than last season. I'll give that to you, Naz. I totally agree. I think they might be the third best team in the West. But this is kind of a zombie team, just like the Heat are in the East. This team's built for playoffs, not necessarily regular season. They just need to get across the finish line and get there. There are 43 wins last season. I'm going to take the under. I think 47 is about their number.
But think about it. Last season, they were, before the Westbrook trade, they were 24-33. So they were 9 games under 500. And
no, they were. Yeah, they were the hottest team in the NBA in the second half of the season last year. No doubt about it. And there's no doubt that they've improved their depth. The thing of it is, I do, they might go over. I'm going with under, but they might go over. But what you have to think about in depth in playoffs is not nearly as important. Depth is really more for the regular season, because or God forbid you lose somebody for the whole entire season. But so, yeah, I think, you can't play all, while they have guys like Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince, Jared Vanderbilt, Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, all coming off the bench. You can't play 10 guys at once. So they're still, their starting lineup, when you look at their starting lineup, given that LeBron's definitely on the decline, it doesn't really move me, So, they might exceed, they might do really well in the regular season, but I at playoffs, I just don't think that depth is going to be much of a help. So, all right. So moving on to Golden State, who actually had a little higher over under than the Lakers. We put them fourth in our poll. And their over-under is 48.5. I don't know whose turn it is. I'm just going to pick you, Cam.
I'm going to go under. There's so many mixed feelings for me with the Chris Paul move and how well he's going to fit into their system. I think he will fit well. But on the flip side, this team is losing a lot of the youth that was really helping them continue to be a playoff threat and a finals threat. The injury risk is extremely high for this team. Yes. With the age on their roster. I think it's a clear under, and I'm worried if we're looking at, I think we might be looking at another play-in scenario for the Warriors this year.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Kuminga has looked very good in the preseason, but we've seen him go on little spurts like this before. So, but that's kind of key. He's one of those players that they really need to come through. Naz, what do you got for the Warriors? Over or under 48.5?
I'm really undecided on the Warriors. I don't know which way they're gonna go with Chris Paul. Any team that Chris Paul went to, they got better, but I don't know how he fits with Steph and Clay and all of them, if they could all play together, I don't know who's going to be finishing the games. Either if Chris Paul starts the game, is he going to be finishing? I don't know. So I'm it's hard to say. I'll say under.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward the under too, and it's the age factor. I mean, your 4 of your 5 best players are really, up there in years. Not something that's good for, they might. To me, they're kind of the opposite of the Lakers. If they can have these guys healthy for the playoffs, they don't need 10 guys, which is good because they don't have 10 guys right now. So I think this team is built for the playoffs in the sense that, if you look at everybody's healthy, you look at their top 7 or 8, they're really in good shape. But yeah, I just don't. I think somebody's going to go down for them for maybe Steph misses like 15 games, Clay misses 15, Draymond's already hurt, maybe he misses 10, 15, and Chris Paul, he never seems to be able to completely stay healthy, especially in the playoffs. So I think they're definitely going to be gentle with him. So long run is, I think that that obviously they want to avoid the play-in. And I think they will, but it's going to be close. All right. So next on our list, 5th in the conference, and they did not have the 5th best over-under, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies. Their over-under is 45.5. For example, actually only one team that we had ranked lower had a better over-under, and that was the Clippers at 46.5. But anyway, let's talk about the Grizzlies. We know the Ja Morant situation. So what do you think, Naz? Over or under? And by the way, Naz, you said under for the Warriors, right?
Yeah, I said under.
Right. So what do you think of the Grizzlies, who had the second best record in the league last year? Over, under 45.5.
I'm gonna go over. I think they're gonna be a top, even without Ja Morant. They play really good without him, and I see they got Derrick Rose, and Marcus Smart was a really good addition. Like, they got rid of Dylan Brooks, who can't shoot. Marcus Smart, he's a good veteran leader, and they just have a lot of depth. So I think they're likely to go over. They could be like a top 4 seed team in the West.
Yeah, definitely possible. If everything goes right. What do you think, Cam?
This is such a hard team to rate. I mean, last season they finished with 51 wins, even with the sporadic, suspensions throughout the season for Ja. I mean, historically they've been really good without him, like Naz was saying. I worry too, though. I'm a little bit of a Dylan Brooks believer. I think that he was maybe more important to that Grizzlies team than has really been appreciated by fans. I still like Marcus Smart, so maybe he can make up for some of that defensive loss. They're also going to be getting Brandon Clark back from injury this season.
When though? I heard he was out for a long time.
It's gonna be a while, but he will be back. I hope by trade deadline time. And we're gonna get to see some of these young guys really step into a bigger role. We've been waiting on Zaire Williams for quite a while. I'm still a big fan of David Roddy. Gigi Jackson has been, looking much more prepared for the NBA level than, some people thought coming out of college.
Youngest guy in the league, Gigi is.
Yep. And he's shooting the ball really well. I like this team. I think they're still going to be a top 4 seed. And when Ja comes back, he's going to come back rested and ready to play.
Right. I got to go under. I'm not a big fan of this team. I was like a year or two ago, but so many of these guys have really not been as good as I expected they would be as pros. LaRavia, Roddy, Clark, Zaire Williams, Luke Kennard. All these guys to me are underachievers. And I'm not a huge fan of Jaren Jackson. So, really what I like about this team is Morant, Smart, and Bane. And we know Morant's going to miss 70% of the season. Start off. We already know he's missing 30% of the season. So then what if he gets hurt on top of that? Then maybe he misses 50% of the season. So yeah, I went from being really high on the Grizzlies, kind of the way I feel about the Pacers and the Pistons now 2 years ago, to now I'm like, I'm not so sure. So I'm going under. All right. So next on our poll is the Sacramento Kings. We have them pegged at 6th, and their over under is 44.5. Cameron?
Yeah, I'm gonna go over. I'm not sure if I'm quite as high as you are as on the Kings as you are, Rich, but this team was incredibly solid last season. They spent most of the year, holding on to that 1 seed, even the 2 seed for a time period. I think they got better this offseason. They're bringing in the EuroLeague MVP and Sasha Vezenkov, who sounds like maybe one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. There's been a little bit of debate as to how much of the rotation he's going to chip his way into off the bat, but I think he's going to be a big time contributor. They're bringing in Chris Duarte, who's a nice wing depth piece for them. And man, Keegan Murray, he had a great offseason. I think he's going to take a step forward offensively, and defensively, I think they really expect him to be, taking on those hardest assignments. And I think if this team can improve a little bit defensively, they're going to be a real problem come playoff time.
What do you think, Naz?
I think they're going to win a lot of games. They got a really good roster. They're going to win a lot of games. I have them in like the top 5 in the West, 5 or 6. But yeah, they're going to go over, but I don't see them that good in the playoffs, mainly because they're not that good defensively. They were like the worst defensive team last year. That's why. But the wins, I'll go over.
All righty. I love over. I love this team. I love this team because they're young. You don't look at this team and say, oh my God, maybe this guy's going to fall apart or this guy's going to fall apart. They bring in Duarte, who's going to help the defense. Davion Mitchell has got another year of experience. So maybe if he can learn to just not shoot the ball and play defense, they should be good. I love the combination of Kevin Huerter and Monk, in terms of knocking down threes, and Murray as well. And Murray's only going to get better. They have a player who can match up with Joker in Sabonis. Yeah, I just really love this team. I think they're going to finish as high as 2nd in the West. I don't think last season was a fluke. All right, so the next team, 7th in our poll, is the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, they were projected by the odds makers to finish higher than the 2 teams we just went over, Memphis and the Kings. Their over-under is set at 46.5. Again, I'll just throw this out there. If I am really kind of shaky about any teams that have a bunch of old guys, especially old guys that are injury prone. And that's why I love the Kings so much, because they're just the opposite. So just throwing that out there, but the odds makers like this team to finish right behind the Lakers, 5th in the conference. We have them at 7th. So Cam, what do you think?
Hammering the under for the Clippers. I like them to miss the playoffs entirely.
Wow.
I just don't see it with this team. I mean, their role players are old. It's not just Kawhi and Paul George that are injury prone. It's like their whole roster, top to bottom, really just can't stay on the court consistently.
Right. Terrence Mann is the only young guy who plays any kind of regular minutes.
He really is. Yeah, I mean, people love BJ Boston, but I don't think I've seen BJ Boston play any NBA minutes in his whole career so far. Yeah. I just don't think I've seen it.
Yeah.
a team that they keep changing their identity as well. Like their whole thing was, we're going to play small and heavy on defensive, on perimeter defensive players. But, now they've got Mason Plumlee, Zubac. They're going back to a more traditional set. I don't necessarily love that for them. I just, we haven't seen the heights of Paul George or Kawhi Leonard in like 3 seasons. I don't have any reason to believe it's going to happen this year.
We saw it from Kawhi for like a game and a half in the playoffs.
And then he got hurt.
Oh, huh?
And then he got hurt.
Right. Exactly. So Naz, what do you think about the Clippers? 46.5 for the over-under.
I'm going to go under. And honestly, the whole Clippers experiment with Paul George and Kawhi, I think has been a failure. Just last season in the playoffs when they went up against the Suns, you said Kawhi played a game and a half, and it looked like they could probably beat the Suns,
Mm-hmm.
It really looked like they could beat the Suns and they could probably come out of the West even, and then he gets hurt. So like I can't trust them at all, especially because I can't trust the star. Kawhi, if he could have stayed healthy, they probably could have won a championship by now. But I can't trust their health, so definitely going under. There'll probably be a play-in team.
I go back to the Sixers trade, and I don't want to beat this to death, but while you guys were talking, something hit me. And basically, it's time for this team to start over. And one of the things to do there is to get rid of contracts that they're stuck with for multiple years. That would be Norman Powell, for example. So maybe the negotiating point is the Sixers don't want Norman Powell's contract, but they do want Terrence Mann. Maybe that's the negotiating. If you want Terrence Mann, you got to take Norman Powell, and so, yeah. But yeah, I'm going under. All right. Next up is the Dallas Mavericks. We have them 8th in our poll, and their over-under is in the next 4 teams all have the same over-under of 45.5. Naz, what do you think for the Mavericks? Are they going over or under 44.5?
This is a tough one too, because I think defensively they're just really bad in the backcourt. Kyrie and Luka, they're not a good fit as a, for defense. They're not a good fit, definitely. But they could win a lot of games if they figure it out. I like the addition of Grant Williams, so I'm gonna go over. Actually, I'm gonna go over. I can see them figuring it out somehow and just win some games and be really good offensively. So I'll go over.
What do you think, Cameron? Over under 44.5 for the Mavs.
Yeah, it's tough. I might have to go over for the Mavs. I got a bunch of unders so far. I think I got to be high on. I'm big on Grant Williams. I'm big on the year of continuity with Kyrie and Luka playing together. I think they'll beat that 44.5 wins. But I don't expect them to be a top 5 seed.
I have them 8 in the West. I'm just not, any team that has Kyrie is already, to me, starting off at a disadvantage. God knows what's going to happen there. And you look at this team, I do like the moves they made in the offseason. I just don't think they're enough. I like Cameron. I love Grant Williams. I think Derek Lively is going to be a great player, defensive rim protector in the future. But other than that, I like Doncic, I like Grant Williams, and I like Lively. And then the rest of the team, I'm like, so I just don't think this is, I think they're a borderline playoff team again.
You know what, Rich? Can I change it to under? I was thinking about it. I think they're gonna be under because I never liked the Kyrie trade to begin with.
Right.
They didn't fit. I never. Luka needed a defensive 3-and-D guard next to him, and that's Kyrie can't play defense. Neither can Luka. I'm gonna go under.
Right. All right. So next up on our poll is the young Oklahoma City Thunder. They've been progressing nicely. They did the process the right way, and it's starting to pay off. So again, their over under is also 44.5. What do you say, Cameron?
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the over for OKC. They've got an all NBA point guard in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, continuing to develop their young talent around him as well. I love Josh Giddey. You got Lou Dort, who's a borderline all NBA defender in my mind. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, our HPP star, is going to continue his rise. And, I like Chet Holmgren as a sort of a dark horse. It's kind of crazy to call him a dark horse, but a dark horse rookie of the year candidate. They're going to be a very successful team. They just have to, put it together. This is the year for them, though, I think.
All right. I before I let Naz go, I'm just going to say I love the direction this team's going. I think 44.5 is just a little too high. I had them finishing 9th in the conference, which is where they are in our poll. I just think, they're still a little bit too green. And so I'm going with the under, but I definitely like this team. Naz, what do you think?
I really like this team. I liked them last year. They competed. They were in the play-in, and they were really close. They battled with Minnesota. I like this team. I think the OKC is overall just a great organization. They always find good young talent. They got the two Jalens, the both pretty good.
Right.
And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he's gonna be in the discussion. He's not gonna be he's gonna be in the discussion for the MVP, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And then Josh Giddey, he's gonna improve. And then you got Chet Holmgren, you got good players overall. So I'm gonna go over. That's the main reason why I didn't have the Dallas Mavericks over, because I think OKC is gonna be like maybe 6th or 7th. Dallas Mavericks probably gonna be like 8th seed, I think, in my opinion.
I hear you. So what do you think about the Minnesota Timberwolves? Finished 10th, which surprised me a little, finishing ahead of New Orleans. Voting was pretty close, but the Timberwolves snagged that last playoff spot in our poll. And again, their over-under is 44.5. So what do you make of that, Naz?
I'm going under for them. I don't like what they did with Rudy Gobert. I don't believe in Towns. The only one that I believe in is Ant-Man, but that's about it. And then Mike Conley's getting older, so I don't know. I don't see them getting that many wins.
Yeah. I gotta agree with you. I'm going under. There's not much I like about this team beyond Anthony Edwards. Seriously, that's the one thing I like. Everybody else, to me, is Towns is a nice player. So, but then you bring in Gobert, which kind of messes everything up. So, yeah, got to go under. Cam, what do you think?
Yep, they were 42 wins last year. I like you, Rich. Anthony Edwards is the one thing that I love on this team. I would like them a lot more if they had chosen between Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns.
Right.
That may happen at some point this year if they come out the gate slow.
The Knicks.
Yep, I think that's a possibility. But the number in my head is 44 wins, and I've got to go with the under. I think the fit is horrific, but the talent on the roster is strong enough to get them to the playoffs. And I think we saw that, with how they played once they actually got there. And, their games with Denver were competitive. I like this team to to reach the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to make the over on this bet.
Right. All right. So the last team with an over-under of 44.5 is the New Orleans Pelicans. And what do you think, Cam? Zion so far has stayed healthy in the preseason.
Yeah, he looks good. He looks springy. He looks athletic. I think I'm going with the under, almost to me exclusively in the fact that they've already lost Trey Murphy for the season.
Not for the season. It's not necessarily for the season, but it's going to be a while for sure.
Yeah,
right?
at the very, the early reports were it was for the season. I could be wrong, but I mean, too, if they're going to be missing him for most of the year, I think he's, for people that maybe haven't watched a lot of Pelicans basketball, Trey Murphy is one of the more promising young wings in the league. They've got a pair of those guys. I know Herb Jones is a little bit more popular because he had that really strong playoff run a couple years back, but Trey Murphy is a hell of a player, and they're really going to miss his production this year. I like the depth. We still haven't seen. They're a little bit like the Clippers. We haven't seen what the healthy iteration of this roster looks like. For that reason, I got to take the under. I still don't trust the health for this team.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I'll believe it when I see it from Zion. But even if he stays healthy, as you said, their best. They got 6 good players, and Murphy's one of those 6. So he's going to miss a significant portion of the season, if not all of it. And then you got Brandon Ingram, who's still struggling, like he did in World Cup. That's carried over into the preseason. So I don't like the depth on this team. In fact, right now, along with Murphy, Alvarado is hurt. Najee Marshall is hurt. Larry Nance Jr. is hurt. So unless somebody like, some of these younger guys that we really liked in the draft, like Kira Lewis or Jordan Hawkins or Dyson Daniels or EJ Liddell, a couple of those guys are going to have to emerge for this team to reach the over. And for this team to make the playoffs, unless Zion stays healthy for 70 games and carries this team, which could happen. But, right now, it's just too many ifs for me to go anything but under. What do you think, Naz?
Yeah, that's actually the biggest question in my mind is Zion. What is his weight? Did he lose some weight? Is he getting in shape? That's the biggest question to me because, when he plays, they're actually a really good team. Like Trey Murphy, what Cam said, that's a good point because he's a really valuable piece for them. But if Zion plays, Ingram, McCollum, I think they could get a lot of wins. I'm strictly going off of the health. If they'd all play, they could be where the Timberwolves were, and they could overtake the Timberwolves. I would go over. That is if they're healthy, but I don't trust them. I'm just strictly going by if they're healthy.
So you're going under that?
I guess so. I guess so, but I don't know. I can't trust Zion.
I think they're one of the more you can see them going vast directions. You can see them winning 30 games or 50 games. Depending on how the things go, it's just that kind of wide range for them.
If I could just see into the future, if Zion stays healthy, if that's the only thing then I'm picking the over.
Oh
but
yeah, me too.
I'll go under.
Yeah,
I'll go under.
I'm with you there. All right, so let's look at the Utah Jazz. Everyone knows they were one of my favorite teams last year, and I told everybody they were going to be competitive, and they were until they shut it down at the end. They're over. We picked them 12th to be 12th in the West, which aligns with the odds makers who have their over/under at 35.5. What do you think, Naz?
I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over. Last year they were a really good team. Utah Jazz, kind of like the OKC Thunder. They're a really good organization. They always find a way to stay relevant. They went through the phase from 2007 when they had Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer, then they had Gordon Hayward, and all these good players, and now they drafted 3 decent players in the first round.
No, they didn't
They're
draft
gonna-
3 decent players. They drafted 3 good players.
Yeah, so they're gonna contribute. You got Larry Markkinen and their big man. I forget his name. He's really good. He's a really good two-way big man.
Kessler and Olynyk.
Kessler. Yeah, there you go. So I'm gonna go over.
Yeah, I hear you. What do you think, Cam?
Yeah, I like the over for the Jazz. I think they'll be about the same win percentage that they were last season, 37, 38 wins. I worry a little bit about the guard play this season. They're going to be relying on some pretty young guys, some pretty inexperienced guys. And I think that's going to limit them, especially a team that's so built for the front court play. But I like the talent on this roster. I think they're a step above a couple of the teams that we still have left on our chart here.
Yeah. I think, on paper, this team is definitely improved. You add John Collins to the mix. You think about all the young guys that they're coming or developing, like, Abaji and Kessler. But here's the problem. Oh, and then their lovely draft of Sensabaugh, Hendricks, and Keontae George. You got to love that draft. However, Hendricks isn't ready to play. Sensabaugh might be ready to play, but we'll see. He's coming off an injury. And Keontae George actually may start for this team. And that's why I'm concerned about this team making the play-in. They're not unsettled at point guard. And 3 of their top 4 guards are shoot-first guards. You don't want shoot-first guards when you have all these talented bigs. You want distributors, and shooters. You don't want shot creators. Keontae George, shot creator. Colin Sexton, shot creator. Jordan Clarkson, shot creator and shooter. So then we have Chris Dunn, who's reviving his career. I actually think, if this team can get the point guard situation straightened out, and I think the way to go is starting Chris Dunn, this team could surprise and sneak into the playoffs. But I just think there's still too much youth for it all to gel this year, and they might not exceed last year's victory total. But I'm going over. Again, this is one of those teams that I love the direction they're going. So we have 3 more teams left, and the next one is the Houston Rockets. And Houston is projected in our poll at 13th, and their over-under is 31.5. What do you think, Cam?
I'm going to take the over. That might be a little bit psycho, but I actually really like this roster. You've got so much, just so much young talent on this roster. And guys that are finally starting to get some experience underneath their belts. I wouldn't be shocked if this team does actually sneak into the play-in tournament this season. You're adding in some veteran talent with Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. I already harped on Dylan Brooks a little bit earlier, but I think what he brings to the team in terms of that dog mentality is something that's really going to benefit this young squad. Fred VanVleet is a pro. And we're going to see one of these guys take a major leap. I don't know if it's going to be Jabari Smith, Sengun, Jalen Green, Tari Eason. Maybe it's Cam Whitmore right out of the gate. One of these guys is going to pop up to a borderline all-star, if not all-star level this season. I mean, I didn't even mention Amen Thompson. I mean, he's looked really solid in preseason as well. I don't see any reason to bet against this team, and honestly, I don't see any reason to think that they're going to be a bottom team in the West either.
No. I disagree with our pollsters at putting them at 13th. For all the reasons you said, you can name, as you did, like 5 guys that could be like breakout, most improved player candidates. My vote would probably go to Eason or Jabari Smith, and I thought long and hard about picking Jabari Smith as my most improved player this year. And I did pick Tari Eason for my sixth man, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I think this is my slam dunk in the West. Rockets will get close to 40 wins. I don't know if they make the play-in, but they're going to get close. They're going to have mid to high 30s in wins. Go take the over, folks. What do you think, Naz? 31 and a half, over under 31 and a half for the Rockets.
Rockets definitely over. Mainly because of the coach. Ime Udoka, I think, is a really good coach, and he's good with young players. And they got rid of Kevin Porter Jr., which I think was good. And they got Jalen Green and the rookies Whitmore and Amin Thompson. I think he's gonna play point guard, and they're gonna be a pretty good team, coached by a really good coach. I think he did a really good job with the Celtics, and he's gonna bring that same culture over to Houston, and definitely over.
Yeah. And then, just think about it. Jemiah Robinson-Earl is probably not going to even make this final roster. So they have depth too. They have good guys coming off the bench, guys like Reggie Bullock and Jeff Green and Deshaun Tate and Jock Landale. These guys aren't all-stars by any means, but they're nice, solid backups. So, a lot to like about this team. Well done, Houston. All right, so now we move on to the 14th team in the West, and our poll has the San Antonio Spurs at 29.5 wins. What do you think? Over, under 29.5 for the Spurs? Naz?
This is so tough because I could see them winning a lot of games. I do think Wemby's gonna make them better, but I don't know if he's gonna make them that much better to give them that many wins. And there's no other teams to really, they're like right at the bottom, so I can't really go over on the wins. So I'm gonna go under.
I hear you. It's still,
there's so many good teams in the West. It's so hard to say like they're gonna get over 30 wins.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go under.
Yeah, teams definitely, again, another team moving in the right direction. But I just think too young, too inexperienced. I'm going under too. What do you think, Cam?
I'm doing my math here as we go along, and I've still got some wins available. I think the West is just flat better than the East this year. I think a few of those middle-of-the-pack teams in the East are really going to get their butts kicked when they head out west on the road. I'm going to take the over here for the Spurs. I think they have a defensive identity with Wembanyama and Jeremy Sohan. The guard play is going to be up and down, but they do have some perimeter talent. I think this is the Wembanyama Rookie of the Year campaign, and he's looked incredible so far in preseason. I think he's going to be able to affect the game enough, especially against your sort of bottom of the league sort of talent teams. He's going to, I think, single-handedly affect the game defensively. I like the over. I'm thinking like a 33, 32 win season for them.
Okay. Definitely possible. All right. So bringing up the rear, not only in our poll, but also by the odds makers, is the Portland Trail Blazers at 15th in the West, and the over-under is 28.5. What say you, Cameron, about the Portland Trail Blazers?
Like I said, I had some wins left in my math, but I still came out to 28 wins for them. I think this one's really on the money. Depending, how low you are on maybe some of the teams in the East that they'll be matching up with, I could see the over. I like the talent. I'm a DeAndre Ayton believer. I think at least on a lower end team, he's gonna have a chance to be the dominating that he wants to be so badly. And Malcolm Brogdon's solid. You got to love the young backcourt pairings that they've got. Scoot Henderson's looking pretty solid so far, especially on the playmaking front. I still got to go up the under here. I think this team has no motivation to win. They will
that is
probably
true. That is true.
I think they'll more than likely make some moves to move off of some of the talent that they have in house.
Right. Yeah, that's my concern. I really think Ayton is in a good spot for him. Jeremy Grant is just a really good forward. Simons we know can score. Sharp can score. Brogdon's solid as it gets. And I'm still not loving what I'm seeing from Scoot, but if this team is trying to win, you can bring Scoot off the bench. And that's where I'm going with the over based on this team right here. But I have a feeling maybe they move Brogdon, maybe they move Grant. So then in that case, they could easily go under. So you're right. The desire thing and what they do with some of these established veterans that are solid players, what they do with them is going to determine if they go over or under. I'm going over based on what I see there now. How about you, Naz?
I'm definitely going under because I think Scoot's going to be a really good player. He's going to be a franchise player probably, but he's still young. They don't have – I'm not a big believer in DeAndre Ayton. I've never liked him in Phoenix. And I think they're just young. They're building. This year they're not going to win that many games. I don't even know what what else they're going to do, if they're going to move any players like Jeremy Grant or Simons. I don't know what they're going to do. So.
Right. They could move him as well. Yeah.
Good point. Just the fact that we're debating 28 wins for the worst team in the Western Conference is crazy. It just kind of shows you how we're looking at the balance of the league right now.
Right. All righty. So we're going to go in this order for our big predictions and to wrap up our fearless forecast. We're going to go Cam, Naz, myself. So Cam, who do you have winning the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I got the Celtics in the East. I think, when I'm looking at, conference champ bets, I want to take the healthiest outcome of this team. And I think the healthiest outcome of the Celtics is a dominant offensive team with some very, high end. You could argue maybe the two of the best wing defenders in the NBA. And as far as your superstars, you got a really good defender in Jason Tatum as well. They can score in a variety of ways. I don't think they're going to be as reliant on, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to produce as they have been in the past. You've got the backup option of Drew Holiday as a creator as well. And Porzingis has looked excellent, planter's foot and all, spotting up in the corner, knocking down threes, attacking closeouts. I don't see a way that this team isn't clearing the Eastern Conference, getting to the playoff finals.
Okay. What do you think, Naz?
I got the Celtics. I really like their starting five, mainly because their perimeter is going to be locked down. They got Drew Holiday, Derek White, really good defenders. Then you got Jaylen Brown, Tatum. They could switch every positions. And Porzingis is a pretty good shot blocker. So I see them in the playoffs. I could see them beating the Bucks. The Bucks are gonna make it. It could go either way, but the safer bet is the Celtics. Like Dame and Giannis, if they would have to go crazy, and they could probably win. But I'm gonna pick the Celtics.
All right, you guys basically said it all, so I don't really have a lot to add, but I too am going with the Celtics. And I should have said leading off our forecast, picked the Celtics. Celtics got 5. I believe there was 10 voters. So 5 of the 10 votes. Bucks got 4 of the 10 votes. So Celtics across the board here in the East. All right. So now in the West, surprising me for sure, the Lakers were the pick in our Fearless forecast by our panel.
Yes.
They got 4 votes. The Nuggets got 3 votes. And so other teams got other votes, but Lakers won. Cam, I know you disagree with this, and so do I.
Yeah, Naz, why don't you go first, man? It's your first show, so
All
we'll feel you after you get your Lakers take in.
All right, so Lakers, the reason I like them is because they got the depth. That's for the regular season, like you said, Rich. But if they can keep AD and LeBron healthy for the playoffs, LeBron, AD, and Austin Reeves, that trio in the playoffs, they could be pretty good. They got experience, good chemistry. Now they got Christian Wood as a backup for AD. Last year, they really didn't have a backup for AD. That was the biggest problem. Going up against Jokic, AD couldn't handle him by himself, so they had him as a help defender. They even had Rui Hachimura guarding him. Now you could just throw bodies at him. You could throw Jackson Hayes for a little bit. You could throw Christian Wood at him, and then AD could still be that help defender. Yes. And then LeBron, I'm not gonna count LeBron out yet. He's shown it the last couple of years. He still has it in the playoffs. He could turn it up. He has to pick his spots. He can't play like himself the whole game, but you could count on him for like a half in a pivotal playoff game. And Austin Reeves, I think he really took a jump. And another player I really like is Max Christie. I think he's going to be a really valuable piece. He's going to be he's going to have a breakout season. He's really talented.
While you were talking, you got more?
I just like their depth overall.
Right. No, I agree. They definitely made a lot of positive moves in the offseason. I think the reason why you saw Cameron and I smiling while you were talking, we had images of Jokic literally dunking the ball with Christian Wood holding on to it at the same time.
Well, you got Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes.
Right.
Has 6 fouls,
and
just
neither of them will be able to stop Jokic. But they
don't have to. Just get physical with him.
Right.
That's the only way. He's a big guy.
Right.
Jokic as a big boy, he just gotta get physical with him. AD, I don't think he could really, like, as great of a defender he is. We saw it. He can't really handle him by himself. So they need a game plan.
No, you're right. You
gotta keep throwing,
especially when he's relied upon for a lot of offense too. So you can't do it all. All right, Cam. So we'll go back to you. Who is your pick in the West?
Yeah, no. If you're not, watching the podcast, in a clip or something, I'm sitting here twirling my mustache because I'm listening to the Lakers takes, and I'm just, I hear this sound in my head, and it's just a broom, just. Because we've seen the Lakers, we've seen AD guarding Jokic, we've seen him guarding him in help, and none of it worked. Nothing that the entire league has done has worked against this Denver Nuggets core when Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are healthy. I think the one duo in the league that you could argue has a chance to maybe move ahead of Jokic and Murray for the best duo is probably Dame and Giannis. But if I look at the roster as a whole, if I'm looking at that top 4, I don't think there's a team that has the Nuggets beat, especially when you account for team fit, team continuity, experience with one another, how to play off of one another. It's team basketball at its finest. I wasn't a Spurs fan, but this is what being a Spurs fan, I think, probably felt like. Nobody cares about your team. Nobody loves to watch them play, but they're just that strong as a couple, as a pairing. I think the Nuggets are still pretty clearly the favorite in the West.
I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I mean, a lot closer than you think.
I agree. because the Sacramento Kings are going to come out of the West. They're going to come out of the West. I'm telling you right now. Now, I honestly, if someone said, all right, you got to bet your house on this, I would take Denver. But I think it's close enough that I just to throw a little monkey wrench in there, I went with the Kings. And I think they do match up pretty well. I do like their depth better than the Nuggets. So I'm going to go with the Kings. But like I said, if someone really pressed me, I would go with Denver. But I'm going to go with Sacramento. And I said why before. So, all right. So now we move on to the NBA championship, and we had a tie. And I don't think we're going to, we can kind of break the tie here, but we all voted. So not really, that'd be us voting twice. But we had a tie between the Lakers and Celtics getting 3 votes apiece. Wouldn't that be fun? Lakers and Celtics again. We haven't had that in a long time. It was a great rivalry. Cam, I'm going to start with you. I don't think you like either of those teams to win it all.
Yeah, no, I can't believe I'm the only person taking the defending champs as repeat champs. I think looking at this roster, they've got the best chance of doing it since the Warriors. And, again, like a similar makeup to a team like the Heat, like the Heatles a few years back. I like to think about matchups too. Like if Denver gets there, I don't see anybody in the East that can match up with Jokic correctly. Maybe the Bucks, but I think they'll have a harder time with Jamal Murray in that case. I'm going to take Denver to win it all.
All right. So Cam's going with Denver. So Naz, who are you going with?
I'm going with the Celtics.
Over your Lakers.
Yeah, I am. They just look too good. Their starting 5 is probably the best in the NBA, and they're gonna shoot a lot of threes. That's the only thing that I think it could hurt them, but then it could also be the thing that helps them win. So I don't know. They're also like really good defensively too. They look on paper, they look like the best defensive team and the best offensive, like both ways. I think they're like the best starting 5. That is if everybody stays healthy.
Right. That's key. In my scenario, obviously I have Boston going against Sacramento, so I went with Boston. If we went with the other scenario, Boston, Denver, to me, that's a coin flip. Yeah, I really think it's a coin flip. Obviously, I think Denver has a little better depth, but starting 5, I like Boston better. So health is going to be a key issue for the Celtics, but I'm going with the Celtics to win it all. All right, so for MVP, we had a pretty close race, but Nikola Jokic won it with 4 votes out of 10. Giannis was the next closest with 2. And interesting, Cam, I think you didn't go with Joker.
Yeah, no, Rich, I didn't. We've seen it. We saw it last year. I think the Jokic fatigue is a real thing. Do I think he's probably going to have similar numbers this year? Yep. Is he going to be deserving? I totally think so. But I think, with Dame in Milwaukee, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for Giannis this season. I actually picked Giannis last season to win MVP. Missed on that one, but he's going to get easy buckets for, I think, the first time in his career, simply because you can't leave Dame Lillard on an island. You will have to double team him in pick and rolls, and that's going to leave Giannis open quite a bit. He's going to see a bump in assist numbers. He's going to have increased spacing. I think he's going to have some really just ridiculous scoring numbers this season.
Alrighty. How about you, Naz?
I went with Jason Tatum. I feel like this is the year. He's been in the MVP discussion and the MVP race. I think this year he's really going to take the next step and lead his team to like over 50 wins. So I'm just going with him. I don't think I don't think the voters are just gonna pick the same players. I don't think they usually vote on the same players. They always look for the next MVP. So that's why I'm going with Tatum.
Yeah, I think last year at one point it looked like he was, gonna win it. We had a huge debate about that on a couple of episodes. But I took the boring choice and I went with Nikola Jokic. I thought he should have won it last year. I thought he was the best player in the NBA.
I did too.
And I think he's going to be the best player in the NBA this year. And so, yeah, simple as that. All right, for Defensive Player of the Year, we had a close race. Also involved Giannis, but he finished second to Evan Mobley. Cam, I see you actually picked the guy I picked last year, but I'm going with somebody different this year. But who's your pick, Cam?
Yeah, we're doing like a Freaky Friday thing, Rich. We swapped because last year I took Evan Mobley. I'm taking Mikal Bridges this year. I feel like, to me, Defensive Player of the Year should be like a body of work award.
Right.
Mikal Bridges is one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. He can guard just about every position on the court, at least for a short stint if he needs to. But he just really shines on any sort of perimeter score. I love Mikal Bridges. I think he's also going to have a starring role this year, and he's going to continue to be, just such a high level defender. I like his chances this year.
All righty. How about you, Naz?
Well, I went with my guy Anthony Davis mainly because I want him to anchor that defense, and I think that's going to be his main role because they have other he doesn't have to carry the scoring load as much now, so that's why I'm going with my heart. I want him
to. As Cam said, we swapped. I went with Bridges last year. I'm going with Mobley this year. I just think he's getting better and better. This team is going to, I think, be prominent in the East, in the probably no worse than fourth. So yeah, I went with Evan Mobley. All right, most improved player. We had a tie, which is surprising to me. We had a tie between Cade Cunningham and Max Christie, and both of them only got 2 votes. That means that 6 other guys received 1 vote. And Cam, you voted for one of the guys I was considering. I had about a list of 5, and that was one of my 5.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the hardest awards to sort of pick out. I'm going with Austin Reeves. I mean, I think he just exemplifies what the most improved player should be in terms of voting. I mean, this is a guy that went undrafted, seemingly by choice, from all of his interviews, but, bet on himself to go to a franchise that was going to help develop him and give him a spotlight if he sort of broke into a rotation, and he did it. I mean, this guy was, at points, I would argue, the best offensive player on the Lakers, which is mind-boggling to say about a team with Anthony Davis and LeBron James on it. I see that I see that continuing. I think he's going to be clearly the 3rd best player on that team this season. He's a solid defender. He mixes it up on the boards, rebounding. He's going to handle the ball quite a bit, especially in pick and roll for that team. I think he's deserving of the contract that he got. I'm surprised he didn't get more.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Lakers got so lucky with some of those contracts.
And too, like, I think there has to be some recency bias with this award too. Like, he wasn't really considered last season, but his playoffs were so incredible. How could you not?
And then he carried that over in the World Cup.
Yeah, he looked great in World Cup. Yeah, I think he's the slam dunk easy pick for most improved this season.
Okay. How about you, Naz?
Yeah, Austin Reeves sounds like a really good pick, but I think like he showed that he improved in the latter half of last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the voters are going to kind of take that into consideration and like not see they're already going to think he's improved. So unless he averages like 23, 24 points per game, I don't see him getting it. I was going back and forth between Max Christie or Ben Mathurin, them two. Like I really wanted to be Max Christie because I see it in him. Like he has the potential, but I think it's gonna be Ben Mathurin. He's a really good player. When I watched the Pacers game, he's talented. He could score inside, get to the free throw line. I like him.
Yeah, we actually talked about him last year as being possibly rookie of the year, and so I like that pick. I definitely like him to do better than Max Christie. Yeah, so I initially wrote down Cade Cunningham I had picked Cade Cunningham in my ballot, and I changed it at the last minute. I was debating between Cunningham, Jabari Smith of Houston, I forget Reeves, and there was somebody else, and then the guy I settled on, and that was Franz Wagner. I just love Wagner. I mean, he's already been doing really well. So that's the one thing that concerns me, where Austin Reeves has more room to grow statistically because he was only around 12 points per game. So if he gets up to like 16, 17, he might be a lock for the award, where Wagner's already there around 15, 16, 17 points per game. So it's going to be harder for him. But I just think Franz Wagner is a future all-star. And and the reason why I didn't pick Cunningham is just I got scared because of the injury stuff. And I think also what I like about Wagner over Cunningham is Wagner is clearly, him and Paolo are clearly the two best players on the team, where Detroit has so many young guys that really could, improve. So, maybe Cunningham doesn't stand out as much as Wagner. So, all right. So, sixth man of the award, our poll went with Derek White. Again, he only got 2 votes. So that means there were 8 other one person votes. Wait, this can't be. We must have a mistake here, because did you vote for?
I gotta be honest, Rich. I saw that you picked Tari Eason, and I swapped from Derek White on over to Tari, because I can't have you inhabiting Tari Eason Island, because that's my island. I'm the founder of that. I'm glad that you're here, Rich. Join. The water is fine on Tari Eason Island. I also I went with Derek White originally, thinking that he would have enough 6-man minutes.
Right, but he might start.
Minutes. I think he's going to start. So yeah. I think that's another reason that I'm kind of backing off of the Derek White move. But I'll let you talk about Tari Eason.
Oh, he's did. I mean, the guy's just, I mean, look at his numbers in Summer League. Look at his numbers in the preseason. Guy's high energy. He can do a little bit of everything. He can play make. He can create. He can play defense. What's not to like? He's got to be like the most, the best kept secret in the league, which is one of the reasons why I like the Rockets so much this year. So I think, I really didn't have much of a hard time, much problem thinking about this, because the way the lineup with Dillon Brooks there, he probably can't start, but he's probably better than Dillon Brooks. So, so what a lovely situation to win the award. You're better than the guy who starts in front of you, and so I think that applies. So, yeah. All right. So we'll go back. We skipped over Naz. Sorry about that, Naz. So who did you go with for sixth man of the year?
I went with Max Christie.
So you're going to give him an award one way or the other.
Yeah, I couldn't give him the most improved player, so I'm going to go with the sixth man of the year, because From the Lakers bench, he's probably the best player in their bench. So I could see him coming in and getting some quality minutes because he did improve, and like he was pretty good at the end of the year last year, and I think he's going to take the next step.
Looked very good. Looked very good in summer league. So yeah. By the way, the guy I picked last year for Sixth Man of the Year plays for the Lakers, Christian Wood.
It's not a bad pick.
What were you going to say, Cam?
This just has to be like the hardest award to figure out. I feel like it's especially hard this year.
Yeah, because you don't know who's going to start.
Well, and the league's just so deep this year too. Like, I mean, a lot of these contending teams are going like 7 deep with like quality players.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing for me. Like, who's definitely not going to start, and yet is still a starter, in reality. And that's why I went with Eason. All right. Rookie of the Year was fun. I think it's pretty much a clear choice to me between two guys. I don't think anyone's going to come close. And our voters, 4 of the 10 went for Wembanyama, and 2 of the 10 went for Chet Holmgren. So Wembanyama wins this award. Who did you go with, Cam?
I've been flip-flopping on this for weeks.
Mm.
I mean, like real life, I have a bet on Holmgren to win. I mean, just simply because he has, decently favorable odds. And I think, there's really only, I would say, 4 or so guys that are gonna, maybe 4 to 5 guys that are gonna get enough playing time and minutes on the ball to really make a run at Rookie of the Year this year. I gotta go with Wembanyama though. I think even just from the like media aspect of it, I feel like it would take a superhuman season from a guy like Chet Holmgren to like actually steal the award from Wembanyama at this point. I mean, every game he does something that I don't think I've seen a guy over 7 feet do before.
Like miss a layup?
Ever. Yeah, I mean, do that, but then he'll dribble the ball between somebody's legs, and then I'm back in.
Right. I'm just joking. He does though miss some bunnies at times.
He does. But I think defensively, we haven't seen anybody like him, maybe ever in the league. And I mean, like from day one, I think he's going to be that much of an impact defensively. And offensively, he's looked better than I thought. I thought he was going to come out and shoot some really poor percentages out the gate. And I'm much less worried
in
about
summer
that.
league. In summer league, in his pre-play, he didn't play well, but he started around in the preseason.
Yep. And the ball handling looks real. I think that was something that I wondered about. I thought he would be a little bit more like a Porzingis, where it's like, he can handle in straight line drives and maybe, the off setback here and there against the center. No, he's doing his best Kevin Durant impression at times and just, crossing over guys, and he's 7'4". I don't see any way he doesn't win the award. Right. I mean, barring injury.
Right. What do you think, Naz?
I went with Wembanyama because it's just an easy choice. I seen him in the preseason, and the dude looks like he's an alien playing with humans. I don't know. He's not gonna be as good offensively yet, but like I think he's still gonna average maybe around 20 points, and that's all you need.
Right. I went with Chet, and I had my reasons. Number one, Chet had a year to sit around and just absorb things, learn how things are done. So this isn't going to be a huge adjustment this season for him. But the only thing, can he hold up for, a large number of games? Same applies to Wemby, though, so I think that washes out. The other thing, Chet's going to be on a better team. Now, that may take away from his statistics, but it's also going to give him more W's under his belt. So I think that's going to be considered. But number 3 is, I don't know, anyone's been listening to the show. I've been comparing Wembanyama to Chet since day one, and everyone's like, Chet or Wembanyama is like, we've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen anything like this before. And I keep on saying, yeah, we have never seen anything like this before since last year. The guy's name is Chet Holmgren. And I don't, yes, they're different. But I think they're different in different. What I like about Chet is he's not reluctant to go inside and take advantage of his height, where Wembanyama is so perimeter oriented. And I really don't think he uses all his tools to the max right now. And I think Chet will. So I think he's going to be more efficient. So that's the other reason. And probably Chet is probably tired of hearing how Wembanyama is so great and he's a lock for the award and blah, blah, blah. When they match up, Chet's going to be thinking about that stuff, and he's going to have an extra edge to him, at least in those games. So, all right. So Coach of the Year. So Naz, you actually think you omitted the Coach of the Year voting, but now you would actually break our tie between Dagnall and Ham. Who'd you pick?
I'm going to go with Mark Dagnall, because I think he's just going to make the Thunder that much better than last year. And he's going to have them in the top 5 seed, in my opinion. So I'll go with him.
All righty. Cam?
Yep, I'm going with Dagnall as well. If you didn't get to see a whole lot of OKC last year, they played most of the season without a true center, which, I think the league is getting a little bit bigger in recent years, and I think it's really impressive to actually take that small ball mentality and make it work across the regular season. They made it into the play-in last year. They had every opportunity to sort of drop out and, choose to tank, but that team was competitive every night. And you're really seeing their schemes play into the strengths of the guys that they have on the roster. Giddey is not a plus shooter, but he's putting Josh Giddey in situations where he's able to create for guys who can create from the perimeter. They're finding ways to play defensively, with, not the strongest setup, but they were a top 10 defense last season, if I'm not mistaken. And again,
without
playing without a center.
Yeah.
I think you add Chet Holmgren, a true rim protector into this situation. You're going to see continued development from young players like Jalen Williams or J-Dub. And I agree. I'm totally with Naz. I think this is a pretty clear playoff team. I think they're a top 5 seed. And if he can get them there, I think Dagnall is a really strong pick for Coach of the Year. I do agree with your pick, Rich. I just don't. I didn't end up going with him just because I think of the image of the award. But I'll let you get into who you're going.
Yeah, I thought about that. I definitely thought about this. So, the last couple of years I haven't come close to getting this right, and I've been going with coaches that I think are going to lead their teams, close to the championship, if not to the championship. And this year, that hasn't worked for me. Like last year, I went with Ty Lue. So this year, I kind of went for the coaches I thought where their teams would make huge leaps. And so I went with Ime Udoka and the Rockets. Now, of course, maybe the press is going to hold what he did against them. I don't know. It wasn't, in the big scheme of things, there's a lot worse things going on in this world. So I doubt that's going to be the case. I also consider Monty Williams. And so here with these two teams, I consider they're going to be the two teams that are going to make the biggest leap in terms of wins. But I think Houston's going to win more games. So, and again, I can't reiterate, I'm not projecting either Houston or Detroit to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to come close. So yeah, I went with Udoka.
Yeah, and then he didn't make the voting list, but I was really close, and I feel like he's worth a mention because I think we're all pretty high on the Pacers this year.
Mm.
But I think if they really make a leap into the Eastern Conference playoffs, you got to look at Rick Carlisle to get another Coach of the Year under his belt too.
Right. All righty. So that's it. That's our Fearless forecast for another season. Season kicks off on October 24th. So I think we're all excited about that. So as always, I want to thank our listeners. No special guests today, unless you want to count Doc. We had him for a cameo. If you ever miss an episode, you can get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. And also, we're going to be opening up the mailbag soon, folks. Which right now we just have so much to cover with the preseason stuff. But you can always hit us up at admin at hoopsprospects.com if you want to send us an email, or you can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and send us a question that way. So we'll be back soon. We got plenty of college conference previews to do before that season tips off on November 6th. So I think our next few episodes will be college preview shows. So we won't be talking about the NBA for a little bit. But yeah, any final thoughts, gentlemen? All right.
Naz, it's good having you here, man. You did a great job.
Good first show. All right. Well done, gentlemen.